It's time for Windows Weekly. Paul Thurrott is here. Richard Campbell has the week off. He's on safari in South Africa. Plenty to talk about. We have the great Notepad. Actually, it's 4 controversies today. The great Notepad controversy of 2025. The great, authenticator password management controversy of 2025. And the great Xbox controversy. Look, just stay tuned. It's a great Windows Weekly next.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is Windows Weekly with Paul Thurrott and Richard Campbell. Episode 935, recorded Wednesday, June 4th, 2025. Don't spritz yourself. Oh, hey, all you winners and you dozers. It's time for Windows Weekly. Paul Thurrott is here from Thurrott.com. This reminds me of the good old days, Paul, when it was just you and me, and we just had a grand old time ranting and raving.
I was trying to find my Fitbit readiness score, which I think is going to be a -3.
Are you ready? Actually, my Oura Ring says I'm actually... It says, we don't understand why your readiness is so good because your sleep was
right.
terrible.
I mean, look at you.
Look at you. Yeah. What? How's that? How are you doing that, they say? Today, my readiness is only 69.
There you go. I never found mine.
My sleep is 53. It says, pay attention.
Where is this thing? Stress management, 67. I don't know what that means.
Oh, yeah.
Why don't I see that? I don't know.
Yeah. And my glucose is elevated.
No.
Yeah.
That's good.
And my
Actually, that's the only good news I got.
Solid.
I went to the doctor. I've been dying to get these tests. I'm going to write about this soon. I got all my tests done, blood works and everything. Everything's great,
Yeah.
Blood pressure, when they measured it, was like 115/70. My glucose is down.
Wow.
My cholesterol is way down. It was like half what it was. So I was like, she goes, you kind of, she didn't say it this way. This is how I talk about it. She said, you kind of ran the rack on this stuff. And I was like, nice. And then she goes, on medication. I was like, whoa.
Burn.
Give me 1 second. Geez.
Don't think you're perfect, Paul.
Yeah, she's like,
you had
like
some
if
help.
it was just up to you, you'd be dead. Like, okay, settle down. Jeez, sorry.
That's pretty funny.
New doctor, she's tough.
Oh, man. I love my doctor. I went this on Monday because my blood glucose was pretty high. And he said, okay, you want Ozempic? I said, I thought I was going to have to fight for that.
Yeah.
He said,
I'll do this as soon as it's in a pill form.
Yeah, which is soon.
Is that happening?
Lily,
because when that happens,
they've passed their first stage clinical trials.
I get to see whatever I want, right?
I think the theory is that you don't want to eat so
You don't want to eat, yeah. No, I've experienced that phenomenon. It's powerful.
There's another thing that happens, and I was talking before the show. It apparently reduces your impulse control. So I've made a little table of my weight,
I was going to say,
glucose, and
those
my
two things
Instagram
are contrary.
Yeah, I'm just curious to see if they go down too.
She's like, so I've noticed you've never eaten anything all week, but for some reason there are 3 new cars in the driveway. Like, what's
I'm not hungry for food. I need powerful gasoline.
Oh boy!
Moose Espionage in our Discord says, "I'm waiting for Ozempic in cupcake form."
Yeah, in God's perfect form.
Let us, my friend. So I should mention Richard's not here because he's on safari.
Yeah, he sent me a picture of a rhinoceros.
Oh man, he was in South Africa for a conference, and then I guess is he with his wife? Or is he a lone safari?
I think I would know that because I follow
all alone looking for lionesses, as it were.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if she was there. Actually, the fact that she hasn't posted anything recently suggests she probably is there because the connectivity is terrible.
That's why he's not here. He would be here. He would be in his little glamping tent.
Oh, yeah.
Doing the show because he's so dedicated that way. But there is no connectivity in the veldt.
He's a diehard. I thought I was bad about this kind of stuff. But
he really is. You don't have to be that way, Paul.
I don't know. I don't
As
know
long as
any
one
other
of
way.
you is.
I know. Yeah, as long right. Well, okay. You have two mental patients over here.
I
so.
go nowhere, so I tootle up to my attic, and that's that.
Yeah.
Yep. So I see here that the great Notepad wars have begun. What are you talking about?
It's important that we have a different controversy every week. This week we have at least 2 or 3. That's pretty good. I'm going to lead with the most important story of all, which is, of course, Notepad. So, so Notepad has been around since before Windows, right? People didn't know this at the time because no one paid attention to this stuff. But there was something called multi.
You say before Windows?
Yeah, Notepad
a
started
DOS
as a
Notepad?
DOS app. It was called Multi-Tool Notepad, I think was the name of it.
Wow.
Multi-Tool something. Some Write or Multi-Tool Write, something like that. And then that was going to be the name when Windows was happening. But then I said, well, we need something simpler than that, and it became Notepad. And Notepad has been in there ever since. So there have been a few notable updates to the app over the first 30 years or so. It was redone for Unicode in Windows NT and made into a 32-bit app. There was some big stuff around Windows 2000 related to encoding formats and stuff. There was kind of a focus on IT pros and admins for a while. And then Linux, because of Linux and the subsystem, and well, before that, POSIX actually as well, but this kind of interoperability angle. Now developers, obviously, because with the Windows subsystem and terminal, you can do these kind of cross-platform things, and Notepad needs to be able to open those types of documents, etc. But when we got, I should say, a couple of minor UI things, very minor, over the years up until about Windows 10. So, Windows Vista, they did like a code refresh on Notepad that didn't really result in too much from an end-user perspective, et cetera. I'm probably forgetting some stuff, but Notepad is a plain text editor. It's something every OS has. It's not complicated, unless you try to write one, by the way, because I'll tell you, doing my Notepad knockoff, .NET, very difficult. It's actually pretty complicated under the covers. And then we hit Windows 10. And so with Windows 10, they started changing things. They put it into the store, right? So they could update it more frequently, which probably set off some red flags in certain places. And then in Windows 11, they really amped it up. So I'm not going to go through every change they've made, but there have been a ton. And they first modernized it for the Windows 11 look and feel, which honestly, they've done a terrific job with. Paint was a 2-year nightmare where they screwed that up completely, and then it took them a long time to get it right. But
is it okay now? Is it?
Yep, it's fine. I can't say it's perfect, but it's fine. The big things there were they added something that looked like a ribbon but wasn't, and you couldn't collapse it. And it's humongous. That's still the case today, by the way. So it takes up a lot of UI space. But it was also only light mode when they first shipped it, and so you'd have a dark mode thing, and it was like like a spotlight on your screen. If you ever opened it by mistake or on purpose, it was terrible. So and that's fine. They also screwed up all the keyboard shortcuts, which was horrible for people like me that use the app all the time. But they got there. That's in good shape. But Notepad has never not been in good shape. They've always done right by Notepad, right? And so first they did the UI refresh. They put a WinUI front end on. This thing must still have code in it from 1993. I mean, there's no doubt about it.
I'm sure it does.
A classic C# app from a million years ago. It's legacy code. There is text encoding formats that nobody knows how they work, and Notepad does them seamlessly. And there are people at Microsoft who have looked at the code and said, we don't actually know how they do this. Like, it's astonishing.
We have no idea.
Yep, they're like, can't figure this out. They basically just take guesses. Like sometimes they'll be like, well, if this character's in this position, try this, and if it works, fine. If it doesn't, do this. That kind of thing. So in recent years, I'd say the last 2 years, the big updates to Notepad have involved functional things. They've added things like that recent submenu in the file menu, so you have all your recent apps or recent documents. Okay, cool. They've added, the tabs and the new settings UI, all that stuff, new ways to do things like fonts and all that stuff. Good. But also the AI stuff. And so you see these Copilot features in there for rewriting, drafting, make it shorter, make it longer. One of the funnest features in Notepad today, I think this might require Copilot plus PC, is you can open a document and it will rewrite it as a poem. It's amazing. It's useless, but it is amazing. And of course, because of the era we're in now, people who would watch the show, people who read my site, people like me, might look at this, and I should say almost always do, and say, no, this is too much. Leave it alone. Like, why are you touching this? And it's a text editor. Why would you bulk it up with features? Why would you bloat it? Why would you do whatever? But the thing is, watching this happen, and because I use Notepad so frequently, I actually think they've been very respectful to the app and to its users. So if you don't like these features, anything I mentioned, anything I forgot, you can turn them off. Like, you can just ignore them. It doesn't actually get in your way. So if you don't want AI, turn it off. It's a switch. You can do that. If you don't like spell checking, turn it off. If you don't like using different tabs, you want to use different windows, there's an option in there for that. Like, you can make it work the way you want. So this, to me, does not meet the bar of enshirtification, right? Which there are different ways to kind of define that. But actually, I wrote one in this that I thought was decent. So I said, enshirtification occurs when a company changes a product or service to benefit itself strategically, financially, or whatever, while knowing full well that this change will harm users, right? So you can think of things like Microsoft or Windows 11 saying, hey, would you like to turn on folder backup? It's super useful. You would love it. And I'm like, nope, don't want to do that. And it's like, but you should really turn it on. It's great. I'm like, yeah, no, I hear you. I don't want it. And then you reboot your computer and it's just turned on and stuff starts syncing between computers. And you're like, I literally told you not to do that. That's enshirtification, right? That's Microsoft wants you to do this so bad that they will just ignore your explicit wish and do it anyway. And there's stuff in Windows 11, like around telemetry, the crapware, the constant feature updates, the forced Microsoft account usage, blah, 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 whatever, that you could argue is enshirtification. But there's a big difference between Microsoft, in this case, improving an app and you just not liking it, and enshirtification, right? You could say, well, yeah, but the Copilot stuff is kind of pushing their AI aims and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, yeah, it is. But like I said, you can turn it off. You don't have to have it. More to the point, I think the real reason for that stuff is to show off what is possible, right? These apps are in some ways a showcase for developers where they can say, look, if Notepad can do this, I mean, I could put this in my app, One of the big things that they did at Build this a couple of weeks ago now was show how easy it is, how few lines of code you need to add to an app to add AI rewriting features, right? And I've done this myself back in January, February. I wrote a real stupid, simple app just to show that stuff off. It's really not that hard. So I think that's the point, right? And so I guess I've gone against the grain on this one with a lot of people because I just watch people react in outrage every time Microsoft announces any new feature in Notepad. It's been just,
they don't want it to change.
They don't want anything to change. This is a big problem with the community these days. I think it's like, we're all old enough now. It's like, stop changing things. And it's like, guys, just because you've calcified, doesn't mean the rest of the planet has. I mean, things evolve, and look,
but historically, Notepad's been the plain text editor, right?
Yep, it still is. Still is.
Okay, so you're not losing that.
This is not changed.
It's still writing TXT files, not RTF files like Wordpad.
That's right. It doesn't do RTF. It's not anything like. It's still plain text. Okay. And that's the thing. One thing I've used Notepad for a lot over the years, and now I usually use different methods, but people have said this to me as well, is you get some kind of formatted document of some kind. You just want the plain text version, pump it into Notepad, it strips everything out, copy, paste it back. Plain text, right? It still works great for that. That has not changed. So I've been kind of weathering this. As it goes along, as they add features, I'm like, this stuff's fine. It's fine. I use it every day. I love Notepad, and I love it so much. I'm still trying to copy it. I spend a lot of my time on
you
this.
Have your own.
It's so stupid how much time I spend on this. So this past week, a couple of days ago, Microsoft announced that they were providing another update to the Notepad app. It's in the Dev and Canary channels in the Windows Insider program. Microsoft, it's they don't always do a great job of explaining things like this. And I feel like this is something that should have come from maybe the developer group or whatever it is, the platform or something, to explain why they're doing this, because they still haven't. I have a theory, which I'll share, but what they announced was they were adding support for lightweight text formatting to Notepad. Now, I want you to imagine the sound of a rocket ship crashing into the earth, because that's what happened in my world. The whole world lost their minds.
I kind of understand that.
Well, because when you hear that, you think of the wrong thing.
Right.
Like what you thought I just said was they're going to support rich text. And that's not what they're doing.
Right.
It's not rich text. They're not supporting RTF.
But how can you support fonts without in plain text files? I don't understand.
You support Markdown.
Oh, it's going to be a Markdown editor.
Yep. So,
Okay.
well, I should
But
say
fonts-
it's not
Markdown
going to be a
doesn't have
Markdown
fonts.
editor, although you could use it like that, I guess. I've not seen it. I literally have 3, if not 4 computers on the dev channel that I could get this on, and to this moment, I've not seen it in person yet. You know, they roll out over time, but so for Markdown, for those who don't know, it's plain text. It's a Markdown language, I guess, similar to HTML or XML, right? It is lightweight. It's designed to be both machine and human readable, meaning that a document that was formatted with tags for Markdown, where you use hashes and, you know, brackets and things, is still you can still read it. You look at it like, yeah, no, I can read this. It's not all, you know, gobbledygook or whatever. It's not like programming code, like a C programming language thing or something. It's readable.
Yeah.
So plain text always will work everywhere. No problem there. There are lightweight Markdown. I'm going to call them like sort of word processors. I use something called Typora that does this.
Yeah.
Where and a lot of like programmer type editors will do a side-by-side view where you write in the code, which is plain text, and they show you a preview of what is really an HTML view of the formatted document, right? But the document itself is plain text. It's just as small as any text document. There's nothing special going on. It's just the language itself, Markdown. So it's not changing to Markdown format by default. It's not going to show you an HTML view of the document. It's plain text. That's all it is. So why would they do this? Is it to confuse people? Is it to, replace Wordpad? This is one of the big, that's why they obsoleted Wordpad. No, it's not. It has nothing to do with that. Wordpad was a security disaster waiting to happen. They got rid of that more slowly than they should have. Markdown is the language, so to speak, the format, the style that is used by almost all developer documentation now. So if you go up to like GitHub, for example, and you look at a README file for a project, that's Markdown. And it renders in HTML, right? HTML, like whatever they use in the back end can render that thing so it looks like HTML, or it is HTML, right? I use Markdown to write my books. I use Markdown to write every article I write on the website. I use Markdown every single day, all day long. Like I love Markdown. And there's nothing wrong with Markdown. It's just plain text. It's not rich text. It's nothing. But people see this. And of course, Microsoft, they're trying to make it friendly that when you're using a Markdown document, or if you start typing code that could be translated into Markdown, like you type hash space, whatever, that becomes a heading 1. It pops up a toolbar with heading, bullet lists, bold, italic, buttons. So normal people can select text and make a link or make it bold or whatever. So people see this picture and they're like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, what are they doing? What are they doing? What are they doing? So I wrote this article explaining what they were doing because Microsoft didn't explain it. And like I said, I have my guess about why. I think it's for developers. Like if you think about like all the stuff that's going on with developers in Windows 11 and all the changes over the past couple of years, yeah, I mean, this makes plenty of sense. I'm actually psyched to doing this. It would be kind of amazing to me if I could actually use Notepad to write lightly formatted documents, right, in Markdown format and not have to install another app, right? Now, that's probably not true because the way it is right now, it's just going to be pure code based, and I actually do want to see the formatted view. But one of the things I do now is, Typora, the app I use typically for the website, is it supports a keyboard, a shortcut for copying, pasting into basically non-formatted HTML. So it's perfectly clean HTML, no extra, nothing in there. It's wonderful. I love it. Notepad's not going to do that. Maybe someday it will. I hope so. I mean, no one else does, but I do.
Typora is a great way to write because it's so clean.
Yeah,
it's so clean.
Yep.
There's no ribbon. There's nothing.
I know. I love it. And if I was using a Mac, the IA Writer is an even better choice.
That's a good one. Yes.
God, it's such a good app. But it's not as good on Windows.
That's why I use Obsidian, because I can write in Markdown. Yes.
And by the way, what do you call it? Notion too is good.
Yeah, Notion uses Markdown. That's right.
Notion supports Markdown syntax. Yeah. You can already write in Google Docs in Markdown syntax. It doesn't save it as a Markdown file, although you can export to Markdown. But if you know Markdown,
everywhere.
Yeah, it's everywhere. That's the point. It's literally everywhere. In fact, you might argue that Notepad is a little late to the game in a way. It is a text format. Microsoft does want developers to use Windows. It is, a piece of that puzzle where it just works. So to me, this makes total sense. But man, I have actually, but I have rarely seen like this community just lose their minds collectively all at once in such a dramatic fashion. And most of them just misunderstood what was happening. I'm not here to dump on Mary Jo Foley, but I'm going to. So
does she freak out? Because I know she's a massive Notepad user.
Yep. I posted this. You know what? I feel like I probably use it more than she does, but it's fine. It's fine.
Well, that's all she writes.
I'm not gonna actually dump on her. I'm kidding. But she did text me. I swear to God, like 2 seconds after I published this, and she goes, I just read this part. I swear to God, we were texting back and forth like half an hour after this. She has 2 comments. Like, this is not going to go well. I'm not going to read this word for it, but the attraction of Notepad is as simple as distraction free, and if I want writing advice, I'll use Word, OneNote, or Loop. Like, okay. So, I mean, this is sort of the stuff I addressed in the thing. And again, Mary Jo is very typical of the argument against this, which is like, well, first of all, this stuff actually doesn't get in the way. It has never, it's never bulked up or bloated or destroyed the UI. Like the app has only gotten better and has only looked better in the last couple of years. Like it's way better than it's ever been. And I don't get to say that a lot about Microsoft. I kind of want to revel in this a little bit. Like Windows 11, which in some ways is like this cesspool of terribleness. This one thing, it's not the only thing, but this one thing, they've really gotten it right the whole time. And when people start like complaining about it, I'm like, oh guys, come on. We've talked about this. There's a lot to complain about. Let's focus on the stuff that we should complain about. This is not one of them. I mean, it just isn't. So anyway, the thing with Mary Jo was funny, but I don't know why I didn't anticipate it. I feel like I should have given her a trigger warning or something. But yeah, so we went through that yesterday. That was amusing. But there's no reason to use a different, I would never install like a third-party text editor in Windows for normal texting. As if you're a developer or whatever, obviously there are reasons, but this thing works great. It looks great, and I can't wait to try this. In fact, I feel like I'm going to find it a little lacking. Like I want it to go further, and we'll see what happens in the future. But anyway, that was the controversy I woke up to on Monday morning. It's like, here we go.
Here we go. Fun.
I'm like, everything's finally calmed down. I've gotten over build. Everything's good. And it's like, okay.
Well, all right. You've reassured us all. So maybe
I'm sure some people still disagree. I can't.
Well, I can understand people saying, a program, there ought to be a very simple, pure text editing program in Windows.
There is. It's called Notepad.
They don't do they don't do Wordpad anymore, right? They discontinued that.
What's that?
They don't do Wordpad anymore, right?
Yeah. So Wordpad was always kind of an oddball. So going back
to mini Word.
Yeah. In the beginning there was the text editor Notepad and the rich text editor Write. Remember from the early Windows.
Oh yeah, right.
Days,
I forgot about that. Yeah.
So Write evolved into Wordpad, and then there was also like a separate project that turned into the word processor that was in Works, which was also not Word compatible, right? But over time, Wordpad, like Notepad, evolved in its own way, and so it became compatible with Word because of the antitrust concerns around the open open document formats in the early 2000s. Microsoft open sourced that stuff and then made this thing part of Windows that was compatible as well, which is why it's compatible with Word documents, right? So Today we have a web-based version of Word that does that. But the last major update to WordPad was for Windows 7 when they were promoting the ribbon to developers as not the simple, what was it called? The scenic ribbon. And there was something you as a developer could add to your own app. I've tried this, by the way. That was horrific, but you could do it if you didn't mind writing a million lines of XAML code. And you could construct a ribbon that was a rough approximation of something you might see in Office or whatever, right? The apps that would have the ribbon. So they added the ribbon UI to WordPad, which I think bloated it up, frankly, because it was very simple before that, and then never updated it again in a meaningful way. So it's been sitting in Windows for years. It's a security vulnerability. This is a way people can get a Word document onto your computer that has a virus in it that can run, and it just wasn't worth updating. So they eventually deprecated and removed it. It's actually been gone from Windows 11, I think, for almost 2 years now, but at least a year and a half. The world has kept turning around the sun. We're okay. It's okay. Yeah. So no matter what it is, no matter how little used something is, someone will always mourn it and then bring it up every time something else disappears. Oh, I knew this company was screwed when they killed the Zune, or whatever. There's always like the one person who's like, oh, I love that thing. And it's like, yeah, but
there's still your .NET Pad. There's Notepad++.
Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff.
The Mac has an editor called TextEdit, but it's by default an RTF editor.
It does both. That's right.
It is not really a good pure text editor. Yeah. So most Mac people actually buy or BBEdit or use
BBEdit back
the free version of Text Wrangler, and they're happy. Because I think it's reasonable to say you kind of, if you do any coding or website development or anything, you kind of need something that's not going to add any.
Yeah, no, you need WordPad's good for that, by the way. But Microsoft has Visual Studio Code, which is cross-platform, which, by the way, supports Markdown. And you can add, I have, and I do for the books, add extensions that do things like spell checking and grammar checking and Markdown syntax checking and whatever. And that's the beauty of Visual Studio Code, right? So, I'm trying to understand the cross-section of the world that is technical enough that they understand everything I just said and are outraged by Notepad, but don't have a developer editor of some kind, of which there are a million free versions. Like it's like, I don't even understand.
Yeah, VS Code is another good choice for just plain text editing.
Yeah, that's right.
Think of it.
Yep.
All right, let's take a little break because we do have a preview update in week D, whatever that means. You winners and dozers, you know what that means. Yeah. Paul Thurrott is here. Richard Campbell is on safari. I kid you not.
I know. It's like sentences that don't make sense when you first hear them. And then you're like, no, that's what he said, and it's what he meant.
He won't be back, I presume. Well, next week, if he doesn't get eaten.
He would make a fine meal for a lion.
A lion would be so happy. They'd say, jackpot.
The best day of that lion's ass. Yeah. Or
they might say, has this been marinated in a fine whiskey of some sort? There's an aromatic.
Yep. It's like when you go to, what's that place called? Not Fridays. Maybe it is Fridays, where everything is like Jack Daniel's sauce.
Yeah. Jack Daniel's. Yeah. Okay, more to come in just a bit. It's just me and Paul, kind of like the good old days of Windows Weekly. Well, they were probably the bad old days, but don't worry, we'll revert to normal next week. Our show today brought to you by 1Password. Now, there's a name I know you know. Over half of IT pros say that securing SaaS apps is their biggest challenge. With the growing, every company has them, right? But with the growing problems of SaaS sprawl and shadow IT, because, guys got to use ChatGPT, right? It's not hard to see why. Thankfully, 1Password has a solution that's so great. Trelica, Trelica by 1Password, can discover and secure access to all your apps, managed or not. Trelica by 1Password inventories every app in use by your company, and then, and you'll love this, pre-populated app profiles, assess the SaaS risks, let you manage access, optimize spend, enforce security best practices across every app your employees use, even the ones you haven't approved. You can use it to manage shadow IT, to securely onboard and offboard employees too, and to meet compliance goals because you've got a full record. Trellica by 1Password provides a complete solution for SaaS access governance. And it's just one of the ways that extended access management from 1Password helps teams strengthen compliance and security. 1Password's award-winning password manager is trusted by millions of users, over 150,000 businesses from IBM to Slack. And now they're securing more than just passwords with 1Password Extended Access Management. 1Password is ISO 27001 certified with regular third-party audits. Oh, and the industry's largest bug bounty, I might add. 1Password exceeds the standards set by various authorities and is a leader in security. Take the first step to better security for your team by securing credentials and protecting every application, even unmanaged shadow IT. Learn more at onepassword.com/Windows Weekly. That's onepassword.com/Windows Weekly, all lowercase, the number 1, PASSWORD.com/Windows Weekly. We thank 1Password so much for supporting Windows Weekly. You support us too, by the way. It's very simple. Just go to that special address, onepassword.com/Windows Weekly. Thank you, 1Password. 24H2. Oh, you're muted.
Sorry, I mute myself because I can't resist making sounds. Sorry.
Poor impulse control, Paul.
Yeah, exactly. I need that Ozempic, baby.
I bet breakfast at the Thurrott household is a lot of, ha! Well.
I don't actually eat breakfast, but.
Okay. But if you did, you don't read the newspaper either.
Oh, no, I do that. And that
do you
is
give
a lot
a
of
printed newspaper?
Oh, no, I'm not a dinosaur.
You're a caveman.
Jeez. No, I don't do that. I can't remember the last time I got a printed newspaper.
Isn't that funny? I was talking to my piano teacher. She has a young student who never saw a newspaper in her life.
You know what I do miss, though, is back in the day, as we say, on the Kindle, you could get a New York Times or whatever subscription, and the thing you would get every day would be that day's paper.
Yes.
So if you have the app, whatever you're reading, the New York Times, the Post, the Wall Street Journal, whatever it is, they promote things however they promote them. So obviously there's news that's new, but you don't get the whole day's new stuff in one place. Well,
right.
I mean, there's probably a view for that, but I kind of want that to be the homepage or whatever of the app. I kind of miss that. Like, I like to go through. Like,
so wait a minute. You're saying if you go to NewYorkTimes.com now, it's not
this is the mobile app. I mean, there's probably a view that is like today's paper.
There's
or something.
probably a link that says
but this is not the
paper.
default. Yeah,
you're right. It's like it's
Yeah, so they might show. So what happens is I'll miss things, right?
Yeah.
There might be like a Wirecutter thing or a sports thing or some, like, I don't really like to read all of the entertainment news, but there might be one random thing where I'm like, I actually would have.
You know what? We're showing our age because that's really what the print newspaper did.
That's what I'm saying.
And you could scan the front and you'd know what was important. You go to the sports page. You kind of knew where stuff was.
A Sunday would come and I would separate this thing out like I was cutting fish in Japan or something. This goes here, this goes here.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going to read them in this order.
Not anymore.
No, it's not like that. No, it's all curated now.
I wonder if wow, it's also an infinite page. Holy cow.
In the app, it ends. Like, you just went by the...
somewhere there must be a link that says no.
No, there is. It's somewhere. Like, if you go to maybe to the top, there's a menu. I'm sure there's a.
There used to be.
No, there definitely.
Oh, here, maybe the hamburger.
There's definitely something. Oh, maybe there's a.
Maybe there isn't anymore.
There's got to be like a today's.
There used to be a front page link.
Yeah, there used to be.
Oh,
I mean, they do make the paper, right?
You can get the paper. I get it for you know who I get it for? My 92-year-old mom.
Like for your painter and for
and for the
when
fishmonger.
You're moving and you need packing material or whatever.
My mom likes the Sunday Times. I used to get it, because it was kind of fun.
Yeah. That was the holdout. Like, there was probably a couple of years maybe where we got just the Sunday paper.
Right. And you get the crossword puzzle in the magazine.
And we lived in, Boston. Like, the Boston Globe used to be this enormous, high-quality publication. Yeah. You start turning into, like, the Highlights magazine. You see at the dentist, like this little...
San Francisco Chronicle wrapped theirs in the Sunday Funnies. That was the first thing you'd see.
That's right.
It's the Sunday Funnies.
Yeah, same thing.
Yeah. Gosh, it's funny how, young people are going, what are these old farts talking about? But it's funny how this stuff is so gradual.
Right.
You don't, I haven't been inside a bank in years.
Same. Right. Exactly. We've been
used
using
to be a teller.
We don't have a bank we could go into. Ours is online only. So
yes,
this is like no one. If anyone gave me like $1,000 in cash, I wouldn't know what to do with it. Like I'm not going to mail it to the bank. You know what I mean? I don't know what
envelope.
I would do with it. I don't know.
Well, cash is probably going away. I know the penny's gone.
Yeah.
Things change, and they change so gradually you don't really notice, except one day you wake up and you go,
yep. No, you can see,
all the magazines?
Anyone who's involved in tech can point to these examples of the transitionary things, right? So the Kindle comes out, and whatever, the Sony e-reader, whatever that was called, one of the initial features was like, it would have a page turn animation.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, it's just like reading a book. Or like all the Apple
they don't need that anymore.
Mobile stuff used to have like, felt on the game table.
Right.
And, like the whole desktop metaphor was like, let's give you something new, but we'll make it a little familiar.
Folder opens.
Get you over the hump.
Take a file out. Folder closes.
But enough years go by and you're like, why are we doing this again? And everyone's like, I have no idea. We just accept it. Why is there a picture of a floppy disk for the save icon everywhere? Most people have no idea what that thing is.
Never saw one.
Right.
Well, many people of a certain age have never seen a phone handset, and that's still the icon for the phone app on most. Most phones, right?
Weird coincidence. Raymond Chen, who does the old, I think it's called the old new thing. He's got a great blog every day. He has some blast from the past technical blog thing. He just posted about Program Manager in Windows 3. Had a search button that had a little like magnifying glass.
Magnifying glass, yeah.
And they were like, this makes total sense. And then they got an email from a customer or whatever from some other country who said, I'm just curious, why do you have a picture of a frying pan next to search? And they were like, okay. So they just got rid of the icon. They're like, it's just not worth it. But
search frying pan. Of course, everybody knows that.
What does that have to do with search,
That's hysterical.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Anyway. Yeah, who knows?
Well, I noticed Notion still has a frying pan next to its search. So
yeah, and right. I mean, Notion actually is kind of.
They have an inbox.
An inbox, yes.
Look at that.
Well, we just accept these terms. It's like, what does this even mean? And it's like, there used to be a box, and you're going to wait for this.
A wooden box
used to be
on your desk.
On the desk, in the office, in the building you traveled to go to work.
Oh, what was that? Work. Oh, yeah. I remember that.
I know. This is what I just said.
Office.
Sounds insane. It sounds as insane as I'm never going to get this right. I was watching a YouTube video where the guy said something like, I use Arch Linux to run Docker so I can do whatever the name of the image thing is. And I'm like, you lost me on the second word of that sentence. I'm like, I don't even know what you're talking about. I mean, I kind of do, obviously, but it was like, we just say things that like we don't even like.
In a coincidental related story, Lisa asked me what Docker was.
Yeah, nice. And you said jeans. Or pants.
Talked for half an hour in circles trying to explain what that is. And it's, I remember when I first heard about containers in Docker and how I didn't understand. I had no idea. It really took me a while. But now I'm just, kind of used to it.
Everything's like this. Like the first time you heard about like VMs, same thing, right?
Same
You're
thing.
like, what? What are you talking about?
You're running an operating system in the operating system? What are you talking about?
Doesn't make any sense.
You got Windows in my Mac OS.
Yeah.
Anyway, anywho, I don't know how we got into this old man conversation.
I don't either, but it's more interesting than what I'm going to say. So, last week was Week D. On Tuesday of Week D, which is the every other from Patch Tuesday, Microsoft releases preview updates for Windows that are a preview of the coming Patch Tuesday update. They did a 22.23 H2 update, which bunch of new features that we would expect. We know a bunch of stuff is coming. But they didn't release one for 24H2, and I predicted they will do it. There was something that this happens. This has happened a bunch of times. A couple days will go by. I predicted Thursday. I think it actually happened late Wednesday, but they will release this preview update because there is going to be a humongous Patch Tuesday update in June, right? So next Tuesday. And they did. And it is humongous, right? It's exactly as you would expect. So I don't really have to go through this exactly because we've talked about all this stuff before, but this is like Click to Do is coming to the EU. Ask Copilot as an action inside Click to Do. new text actions in Click to Do, shortcuts for pen users in Click to Do, those search improvements we've been talking about, where I call it semantic search because I think it needs a name. On and on it goes. Windows key plus C to invoke Copilot, like we used to do with Cortana for a million years. Image descriptions and narrative. It goes on and on and on. Like the June Patch Tuesday update is going to be big, and I would say this is probably the second big Patch Tuesday update that will happen this year. So if you want to get, or it happened so far this year, I should say, if you want to get going early on that, you can install the preview update. If you don't, just don't. You'll get it automatically. It's fine. So that did happen. And then I have a theory about why it was delayed, because I kept checking the page where Microsoft lists the updates for each version of Windows 11. And under 24H2 on the, actually it has the date. So and that's not right. On the Tuesday, last Tuesday, the 27th, they released an out-of-band update, which I went back about a year and a half and I didn't see another one of these. These happen. I'm familiar with the term out-of-band, but typically you'll get something like this if there's like a 0-day or some kind of serious problem, whatever it was. In this case, something tied to Hyper-V, which is the virtualization platform in Windows, speaking of which. So the day that this would have come out normally, they released this out-of-band update, and maybe they just wanted to give it a day because the next day, very late the next day. But they did eventually release that the preview update. So that happened. What else we got? And then there have been, three sets of, but four Windows Insider Preview builds since we last spoke. There have been 2 Canary builds, which is really unusual, including one that just happened. I didn't have the link in the show notes for those of you watching it on Discord or whatever, but it's in there now for Leo and whoever else. But the Canary build today added features that we are seeing in other parts of the Insider program, so nothing serious, but energy savers compatible with Intune. The phone companion part of the start menu is re-rolling out, et cetera, et cetera. So all the stuff you see in there, there's nothing unique to Canary in there, but there's stuff that hasn't been there before. The build we got on Friday, there was only one build Friday, but also Canary is a new accessibility feature called Voice Access. I'm sorry, Voice Access is not a new feature. That's a feature, but it's getting a new user experience to help you discover it better and get going with, speaking to the computer. So that's pretty good. Yada, 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 yada. Yeah. Okay. So that's most of the Canary stuff. But of more import, because I think it just impacts more people, I think it was yesterday, maybe the day before, they released separate updates for the dev channel and beta channel. These have been the same for a while now. Remember, they were both on 24H2 for a while. Or could be. Beta was 23 and 24H2. But this is, I think, the first one where they've started to diverge again. So there's a couple of features that are common to both sides of this equation. Quick machine recovery we've been talking about. This is if your computer is having problems booting, it will actually just go right into Windows recovery environment and you'll get whatever remediation, you'll reboot and it should fix it. And then the phone link improvements, which is specifically the some improvements to that phone companion sidebar thing on the start menu. So if you have a Samsung or other kind of a few phones that do this, if you have screen mirroring, if that's an option on your phone, you'll see that in that pane, for example. If you're an Apple user and you've got iCloud synced up to your computer so you can access that stuff in Photos, you'll see memories from iCloud in there as well. So kind of bringing those things a little more closely together. But then there are several features that were specific to the dev channel. So a draft feature for Copilot in Word, which I'm not sure why that's, well, it's because it's a click to do feature and that's a Windows 11 feature. But if you have a Microsoft 365 Copilot subscription, have the desktop version of Word installed, you'll be able to use click to do to click on nothing and then draft a new document, right? It will actually help you get started. Usually you click on something and it does something with that text, but in this case, you'll click on nothing.
Click on nothing, it says, huh?
Yep. Huh? Yeah. There are no text actions.
What would you like to do?
Oh my God. So this is unrelated to what we're talking about. But this just happened. So yesterday I was laying on the bed. I had 2 laptops open. And like I said, I've got dev channel on.
As one does. One for the left hand, one for the right hand.
Well, I was setting something up over here, working over it, whatever it was. And my phone rings, right? So I pick up the phone. I'm like, hello? and I can't hear anything. And then but this has happened before. I know what's happening. I look at the computer. The computer's picked it up because I have phone link installed.
Right.
Because I'm trying to get this phone companion thing on all the computers so I can write about it, whatever. And sure enough, there's a little dialogue that says, one of the buttons says, like transfer to mobile device. So I'm like, I solved it. Like I get it. Click. I'm like, hello? Nothing. Hello? I look at the thing.
Go to the other laptop.
I go to the other laptop. It says, it's got the thing up. It says transfer to mobile device. I'm like, all right, I got this. So I click it over here. I'm like, hello? Nope. It was transferring back and it never went to the phone. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Like, I'm like, this is the best the script. Like, if you want to understand Microsoft, just think about what I just said, like how insane this is. So I literally had to close the laptops to get well, I mean, I could have probably tried other ways, but you know, this thing is a background processes. Not like closing the app doesn't really help. If you try to close that little thing, it will hang up the call. Like you get it. I'm like, so anyway, I get to the person, and this woman.
That's a very patient caller. I must say.
And I thanked her for this. She was laughing so hard.
She could tell this is what was happening.
She said, "I don't know exactly what you just did, but I know it had something to do with some laptops or something." And I'm like, "Yep." And I'm like, God. Thank you for writing that out with me. I'm like,
So was she hearing you through the laptop microphone?
Oh yeah, because she's like, and she said, "Oh, now I can hear you really well. Before you sounded like you were coming out of a tunnel." And I was like, "Yeah, that's what it sounds like when you're on a laptop microphone. They're terrible." But she just sat there and let it happen, and I was like, "Thank you for waiting." So that was pretty.
You know
cool.
what? We're all modern people. We know how it is these days.
Wait, how stupid? Seriously, like, honest to God. Yeah, so I showed, since I'm just on this topic, like we've been talking about click to do, and one of the things that's associated with this, we're going to talk about this a little more in a second, is these app actions, right? And so there are these. Chris, there's a leaf blower 2 feet from me now blowing away,
but we can hear it perfectly. That's the good news.
Good.
That's who's outside now is guys with leaf blowers. That's the only people outside these days.
Exactly. Yeah, this is like the suburban dream. It's like quiet, bucolic, every day. Like, what, guys,
I know. I hate these things. And they're all working like one-stroke engines, so they smell.
Oh yeah. They're disgusting. You think they would be flying around in Star Wars things by now, making no sounds, but no, they're louder than ever. There's more of them. Anyway, so seriously. There are two related things happening in Windows 11. Some of this is Copilot plus PC specific. Some of it is just for everybody, right? So you'll be able to right-click on things. That could be an image, it could be a text document, and be able to get these text actions. This is extensible. So Microsoft has apps in Windows that support this, of course, but they are opening it up to third-party developers. So like something like Notion, I'm just making this up, but I could click a text document. It could say, add this to Notion or something, right? Okay, cool. I showed this to my wife this morning because it was just so outrageous. If you're familiar with Windows at all, you know that you can right-click a file and you get this menu. This menu is shorter in Windows 11, or I should say it used to be because it's about to get really long. And among the things that you could get in there were options like open with, and then you get a list of apps that are compatible with that thing, on a sub-menu. Like, okay. So like when I right-click a PDF file, I see various browsers and whatever else. Cool. There's share. Also, a lot of choices. And then now we're getting these new things. So they're adding actions in there that are specific to apps that are in Windows, right? So I get a edit in Notepad option on a PDF file, which actually I'm not sure what that's for, but okay, fine. When I right-click I'm just making sure it does it. Yeah,
You've just sold your house in a contract. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah. And I edited that thing in Notepad for some reason.
Yeah. That's got the new DocuSign feature.
It's crazy. All right. I said earlier that the phone link thing where it's going between the two computers but never to my phone was the most Microsoft thing ever. This is potentially even better, the most Microsoft thing ever. So when I right-click an image file in Windows 11 now, these are the options I see. And these vary a little bit by computer, but pretty much this is it. Ask Copilot. Okay. Edit with Clipchamp. Weird. That's a video editor. Edit in Notepad. Nope. That doesn't make any sense. Edit with Paint. okay, fine. There's already an open with, but that's fine. And then it says Photos. And Photos has a submenu. So why would it have a submenu? There must be multiple actions that Photos can do on this image. No. The submenu has one item. It just says edit with photos. So
wait a minute. It's got a edit with photos menu that has a submenu that says edit with photos.
Well, it's a photos menu that has a submenu with edit with photos. But the point is, next to that photos main menu is an option that says edit with paint. Why doesn't it just say edit with photos? And why does it say edit with Notepad? This is Microsoft. This is, if you're wondering, why I sometimes appear to be insane. This is why. It's this stuff. Like it's the daily illogical nature of everything that I see in Windows. It's breathtaking. Anyhow, sorry.
Can't you? Am I wrong, or didn't there used to be a folder that you could put stuff in for the right-click context menu? Right?
Oh, Leo.
The send to folder or something like that?
Of course. That's probably still there. No, they don't really do send to anymore. So
you could put an alias in there and it would send to.
Yeah. They have share, right? And so up until 2 seconds ago, there was a share option that was an icon, but also an item in that context menu. Right. Today, depending on which computer you have and where you're at and things, that is also something that pops open a sub menu. So in my case on this computer, whatever, I just right-clicked, it says share with, and then you go out and it says phone link, Outlook, Copilot, and then more options. And more options launches the share pane, which we've been dealing with since, Windows
Is
8
briefcase on there?
No, it should be though. Now copy to a floppy and bring it to a different computer. Yeah, briefcase.
There's another thing kids don't know about is my briefcase.
Or just turning off the entire internet with an icon on your Windows 95 desktop.
Oh yeah.
We used to
you can't get on the internet yet. You have to launch it.
I'm just seeing if this is so. Oh, you know what? I apologize. In the classic menu, is thus the menu in Windows 11 and can be reached in Windows 11 in a slightly more convoluted way, it does still say send to. Oh. So yeah, it's still like a vestigial leg in a whale. It's in there.
There's a folder that you could put something.
There is. And of course, it's like a documents item that has like a documents library icon from Windows Vista, because seriously, this is an archaeological dig of the past and what is happening.
Wow.
I love that I can send it to the desktop and it says create shortcut parenthetically, because this document is on the desktop, and that's hilarious. Please don't make me go down this path. It's just, this is what
Let's take a little break so people can try this at home.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
It's like
just right click everywhere.
Stuff I did with Windows.
See what happens. Honestly, I kind of am starting to feel for you, because as somebody who's writing a book that is in theory going to document every feature of Windows, it's Sisyphus. There's no way.
Yep.
You're
You're right.
You're cleaning the Aegean stables.
This is me coping with the fact that I need to just give up. This is impossible.
It can't be documented.
Imagine I did it. Imagine this morning I'm like, holy, I did it.
It's done. I got it. It's all done.
Boop, 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 I get an announcement. Microsoft's changing Notepad. Microsoft's changing snipping tool. Microsoft's moving the icon on the desktop. Like, it never ends.
You can't finish this.
Nope.
So what are you going to do?
I'm going to step in front of a bus. I'm
going to cut off the soles of my shoes, get me a sailboat, and sail around the world.
This is why people retire. Eventually you get too much of this.
Right.
And at some point, it just you're like, am I making a difference?
I was talking the other day about how in the early days of computing, I don't know if you experienced this, I felt like it's a fire hose. I can't keep up. Right. Everybody's ahead of me. I'm running as fast as I can, and I can't keep up. But then it kind of, in the last 10 years, I caught up. It's like not changing that much,
Well, you know what, though? I don't actually think it ever slowed down. I think what happened for you and I both is that the stuff that we care about, the part of tech computing that is interesting to us was not the focus, right?
That's right.
So when enterprise cloud, whatever was happening, I was so happy to ignore most of that.
Yeah.
And not worry about it.
Yeah, it wasn't
and now
interesting.
AI is happening, and guess what, baby? The spotlight is back.
Yeah, we got to
And
pay attention.
you thought that was a fire hose? This is a tsunami.
Well, that's what I was going to say. It really is crazy now. I mean, it's just...
No, it's insane. It has never been like it is now.
Every week I'm preparing for Intelligent Machines coming up later, our AI show. And so I bookmark AI stories. And it's an endless. There's
No, this was I actually wrote an article about this because between all that protester stuff and all the announcements at Build and Google I/O right in the middle of it, and the 100 and a million whatever they announced, and whatever else was going on, I at some point, like those little bugs that like turn into a little ball and they roll, like it's like a little pill bug thing.
Pill bugs.
That's what happens to you. Like eventually you're overloaded and you're like, I can't even function.
Well, here's the good news. Apple's keynote is coming up on Monday, and they're not going to say anything.
Well, that was why this week was so great. And then Notepad happened, and I was like, what are you doing to me?
Notepad?
I just got over it. I just got over it. Not so much Notepad, but just like the response, like from other people. Like, come on.
Hey, Paul, just think we have nothing to talk about, nothing to write about if things like that didn't happen. No, that's not true.
No, I'm not that kind of glass half full person, but I hear you. I mean, I hear it. Like you're right. I owe Microsoft a wonderful career.
That's right.
And
thank goodness we've had to explain this.
Probably not going to go postal on a campus or anything, but we'll see. We'll see what the future holds. It's hard to say.
That's why he plays Call of Duty, folks. Gets it out of his system.
Work it out. Yeah.
Let's take a break. When we come back, there is more to talk about. Actually, DMA changes for because of the EU, but I don't know if we're going to get them here. There are earnings to report. Lots more coming up. With Paul Thurrott, you're watching Windows Weekly. Richard has the week off. He's on safari in South Africa. Our show today brought to you by ThreatLocker. I mean, if you listen to our Tuesday show, Security Now, you know what a crazy world it is. Ransomware is just killing us, harming businesses worldwide through phishing emails, infected downloads, malicious websites. I mean, RDP exploits. Who knows? You don't know where it's coming from, but you don't want to be the next victim. You need something that will protect you no matter what. You need ThreatLocker's Zero Trust platform. How does it work? It's really simple. It takes a proactive, and this is the key, deny by default approach. By default, it blocks every unauthorized action, protecting you from both known and unknown threats. You have to explicitly authorize something before somebody can do it. This works so well. And it's one of the reasons that mission-critical enterprises use ThreatLocker. Businesses that can't go down, like JetBlue, right? Also, infrastructure, like the Port of Vancouver. They both, JetBlue and the Port of Vancouver, they use ThreatLocker because it shields them from zero-day exploits and supply chain attacks, exploits no one's ever heard of before, brand new, and real nice side benefit, you get a complete audit trail for compliance. ThreatLocker, they call it their ring fencing technology, really innovative. It isolates critical applications from weaponization because bad guys can't use it. They're not authorized. It stops ransomware dead in its tracks. This is actually really important. It also limits lateral movement within the network because perimeter defenses aren't perfect. If somebody gets in, you can't let them just do anything they want. And that's what ThreatLocker does. It's what Zero Trust is all about. ThreatLocker works in every industry. It supports Mac environments. They've got great 24/7 US-based support. You get comprehensive visibility and control. Talk about infrastructure. Just ask Mark Tolson. He's the IT director for the city of Champaign, Illinois. City governments are highly targeted by ransomware. Ransomware guys love that. So what did he do? He got ThreatLocker. He says, and I'm quoting, quote, ThreatLocker provides that extra key to block anomalies that nothing else can do. If bad actors got in and tried to execute something, I take comfort in knowing ThreatLocker will stop that. End quote. That's the point, right? Unless it's explicitly authorized, it doesn't happen. Stop worrying about cyber threats. Get unprecedented protection quickly, easily, and cost-effectively. By the way, I want to underscore cost-effectively. I was shocked when I went to the site, and I said, really? It's that affordable? Find out. Visit threatlocker.com/twit. You can get a free 30-day trial, see how it works, see how easy it is to implement. And sometimes people say, well, I don't know, zero trust. Am I going to feel like I can't do stuff? Oh, no. It's perfect. You could do whatever you want, right? But just the bad guys can't do stuff. Learn more about how ThreatLocker can help mitigate unknown threats and ensure compliance. It's a great solution. ThreatLocker.com/twit. ThreatLocker.com/twit. We thank him so much for supporting Windows Weekly. And of course, you support us when you use that address. So do ThreatLocker.com/twit. What are you laughing at, Paul?
Well, some discussion about half glass full, glass half empty. I've told this story before. I apologize. I repeat myself a lot, but I literally said this in this moment. I don't remember what I was talking about, but my wife looked at me and she says, this is many years ago. She's like, oh, you're a real glass half empty kind of person. I'm like, glass half empty? I'm like, I finished the water. And I see a crack in the bottom of the glass.
Yes.
And I'm just waiting for the internal bleeding to start. Yes. I'm like, glass half empty. I would give anything to be that positive. That's not even close.
Oh my God, there's a crack in the glass.
Yep.
Well, you know the old joke. An optimist says the glass is half full. A pessimist says the glass is half empty. An engineer says the glass is poorly designed.
Nice. Yep.
That was a very token laugh.
Nope. There were variants of that. I wasn't sure where you were going.
Yeah,
I only
do the
color
good
version
ones.
of that as well. But
yes, I know. All right, let's talk. The Digital Markets Act is the EU's attempt to get big companies to toe the line.
Yeah. So if you've been following these stories, you know that Apple's not following these rules.
No.
And Apple's gotten in a lot of trouble.
Yes.
Microsoft, curiously, has just kind of rolled over. They're like, yep, no problem.
They've been here before. They know.
Yeah. They're kind of the model you might want to follow, by the way, guys. Apple, that is. So, I mean, I don't know, about a year and a half ago, they have a page that describes all the changes they make to Windows for the DMA in the European Economic Area. They just sometime between now and next couple of months, they're going to implement a bunch of more changes just based on feedback from the EU or whatever. And it's all stuff that everyone listening to this is going to want to have wherever they live. Like when you set the default browser, it actually sets the default browser for everything, not just a couple of things, and has a clear link for PDF as well, and doesn't make you go to Edge in certain circumstances. Like unless you chose Edge, obviously. You can take any web search provider out of Windows Search, including the stuff that Microsoft builds in. You can uninstall the Microsoft Store, right? And it will still keep the apps up to date in the background. It just gets rid of the apps. So if you have apps that are included with Windows and they update through the store, that will still happen. It doesn't break it. This is kind of the old, we can't take IE out of Windows. That would break Windows, kind of argument. So they got rid of that problem. And if you are using Bing or the Start Experience app, which is, Jesus, what's wrong with you? But whatever, it will no longer keep prompting you to use Edge. It will just respect your choice and move on. And you read this and you think, yeah, this is what a de-certified version of Windows 11 would look like. So the one thing Microsoft isn't doing is making these changes available to anyone outside of the European Economic Area. There are already third-party utilities that basically configure Windows as if you were in the EU, and I suspect they will continue working. So there will be. This is something I'm going to look into once these are all available. Like I want to see if we can just do this everywhere because respecting your choice. I mean, what a concept. There's that. This is just interesting because of the Microsoft angle on this one. Bloomberg analyst Mark Gurman has written more words about Apple this year than I think are warranted. But a lot of hand-wringing over Apple Intelligence. What's going to happen at WWDC? Blah blah blah. Who cares? But apparently they're going to drop the current version numbers that they use for iOS, iPadOS, and all their major platforms and move to a year-based system, like the one Microsoft did in the mid-1990s. And by the way, they don't do that anymore for a reason. And the reason is everyone thought that the software they were using was always out of date because they didn't update their systems every single year. So Apple does, and I guess that's the theory. But the idea there is that, now you have to, right? Like no one's going to be wanting, if you bring up your iPhone and it says, oh, you're using iOS, 19 or something, and it's 3 years later, you're going to be like, what's going on there? So I think that's kind of a weird problem.
I brought that up yesterday on MacBreak Weekly. This was a lesson Microsoft learned when people were using Windows 95 in 1997. And it's 2 years old.
But the other thing
But Apple does update every year.
They do right. I think that one you can defend. There's the potential they might do this with the devices too. So the iPhone.
They say everything is going to be 26. This is a rumor, of course. We'll find out Monday.
So so right now, if you follow this stuff closely, and if you don't, you're normal. Don't worry about it. But iOS and iPadOS are in the same version number. macOS, watchOS, tvOS, and visionOS are all on their own
different.
Things. They're all completely different.
Yep.
So this will line all those products up with the same number. By the way, Microsoft did that before too. They did that, and I think it was 1993 when they took Word 5, PowerPoint 2, Excel, whatever it was on, did the next version and put them all in version 6, right? So I'm not saying Microsoft innovate or Apple copier, but I'm kind of saying that because it's fun. But, whatever. There's a reason Microsoft doesn't do the date thing, though. I think they'll be okay. I think it's probably okay. Plus, I think there's some plan where they might start rolling out phones over a period of time, so that will still stay current. It will make more sense.
They're thinking of doing what Google does, which is kind of the mid-year release.
Yeah, that's fine.
And then the end of the year release.
I just thought it was. As I read this, I was like, man, where have I heard this before?
I know. I brought that up. I know.
30 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't want to spend too much time on this. I mentioned there were at least 3 major controversies this week. I'm going to say there are actually 4. So none of these are any of them, but I want to get by these so we can get to the next one. Microsoft, all the big tech companies, earnings, IDC's come out with predictions for PC sales this year. Lenovo, gangbusters a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, we talked about Lenovo, and then I just saw, was it Dell did pretty well too?
Yeah, Dell, HP have both come in, and then NVIDIA, which is only kind of related on the side, but I'll get to that.
But the other OEMs didn't do quite as well as Lenovo, but it is definitely an up market for PC sales.
Yeah.
Right?
So, the earnings are always interesting to me because I look at the numbers and I look at how they compare to a year ago. I look at, whatever they provide. I'm very interested in the hard numbers. But the thing that sinks or swims for a company is often just what they say. It has nothing to do with the hard numbers.
Right.
And one of the problems, I guess, is, HP has this really rigid accounting system, and they're honest. And they were like, look, tariffs, uncertainty, blah, blah, blah. We don't want to, be too upbeat about the rest of the year because we really don't know how it's going to go. And their stock fell off a cliff, that's what, even though they're doing fine, they're doing fine. They're doing, their PC business is doing, not quite as well as Lenovo's, but almost as good. Dell, same thing. If you compare these two companies, not their total revenues, because they're very different companies really, but the part that makes PCs, HP's PC business, $9 billion in revenues. Dell, smaller company, $12 billion. Sorry,
bigger company.
bigger. Sorry, by market share. I meant.
Okay, yeah.
But yeah,
they made a lot more money.
Yeah, and the vast majority of those sales from commercial PCs, right? Not from. Right. The Dell consumer business has fallen off a cliff, and I feel like it has to do with the XPS and rebranding, and everything is a Dell now. And what are you doing? Seriously. The most mental kind of rebranding thing I've ever seen, if you care about brands, but whatever. NVIDIA is fascinating for all kinds of reasons. We know they're one of the biggest companies in the world now. They've been doing not just double-digit growth, but high-end double-digit growth for a long time. Still doing that, although it is starting to slow. They took a $4.5 billion charge because of tariffs and still nailed it. And as a result, their stock went through the roof because it's these guys are killing it. It's just kind of interesting, even though they're actually, they're getting hit a little bit on stuff. And there are rumors that NVIDIA and MediaTek will be coming out with a chipset that incorporates an NVIDIA GPU that runs on ARM by the end of the year. So this, we'll see. We'll see what happens there. Okay. That's earnings. All right, so this is the second major controversy of the week. This one is a little vague because it was reported through Bloomberg. The guy involved in this confirmed it on LinkedIn, but there's no details. And there's all kinds of misnaming of things, both on the part of Bloomberg and the guy from Microsoft/LinkedIn. So the current CEO of LinkedIn, Ryan Roslansky, I believe he's been CEO for, I don't remember the time frame, but several years, is on the senior leadership team at Microsoft. But remember that LinkedIn is run as a standalone company, right? It's run independently. It's not tied into Microsoft's earnings, although they do discuss it every quarter. Then it's not part of the central company. Like it's, they bought this company, I think it was 26 billion-ish several years ago. They've been just letting it do its thing. This guy is going to run what he and Bloomberg both called Office. I'll remind you that there is no such thing as Office. Microsoft renamed, the overreaching product brand is Microsoft 365, but the Office suite, as we sort of knew it, is referred to as the Microsoft 365 apps or the Microsoft 365 desktop apps. So it's kind of bizarre, but he will report to, he used to be under Scott Guthrie. So this was Intelligent Cloud, the Azure, cloud AI part of the company. He's now part of productivity and business processes, which is Microsoft 365. Also the commercial side of Windows. He's going to be under Rajesh Jha, who the leader of the Windows team reports to. He used to sort of run Windows when we didn't have a direct leader of that business. He oversees a bunch of things, but Microsoft 365, let's say. He described it as, I just want to get the way he worded it because it's very strange. He's going to continue to be the CEO of LinkedIn, an independent subsidiary of Microsoft, which he calls out, but he's also going to step into a broader role leading Microsoft Office and Microsoft 365 Copilot. Okay. So I guess we're calling it Office again.
What? That's so weird.
I know. He refers to it as one of the most iconic product suites in history. Although I would say...
So it's not a lapse. It sounds like it's intentional.
Right. Which is really... he says Office 4 or 6 times in here. It's crazy.
So it is intentional.
Or he just literally has no idea what he's talking about. He's from LinkedIn. No, I mean that. I'm not being funny or whatever. I think this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. So I don't know what he's talking about. So yes, the product suite. So this is what it used to be, right? So Office was this thing that ran on Windows, but also on the Mac. There's a web version, but now there are mobile versions of these apps. There's a lot of them, actually. Copilot, in the Microsoft 365 sense, is an app and a service that's part of that whole world. There are other components of Microsoft 365 that are, I would call them server or cloud-based, I guess, services, right? He's not in charge of that. So I guess what he's referring to really is the client stuff. I don't think it's like Windows specifically. I think it's all of the clients. But again, I really don't think he knows what he's saying here. And he says, productivity, connection, AI, they're all converging at scale. Office and LinkedIn are used daily by professionals globally. Looking forward to redefining ourselves in this new world. I am looking forward to some clarity on this guy because I have no idea what he's talking about.
This is like the new head of NOAA who said, "What? We have a hurricane season in America?"
Yeah. He's Bloomberg referred to Office as a bundle. I just mentioned that they aligned all the version numbers right and back in 93, 94, that time frame. That's when it went from being a bundle to a suite. We haven't used the term bundle to describe Office since I was a child. That's not.
Maybe you're reading. Check the date on this article.
I know. The whole thing is crazy. I don't even. Oh, but here. So according to Bloomberg. Which I don't know where they got this from. Well, actually, I do. I'm sorry. There was an internal email sent at Microsoft, which I'm looking forward to seeing because I think that might provide some clarity. Bloomberg has seen it. They did not publish it. I have not seen it. It's not anywhere, or it wasn't before the show started. So I think we'll see it eventually. But according to Bloomberg, this is, and if you know anything about the world I'm part of here, you'll understand how crazy this sounds. Apparently, they're not rolling out AI quickly enough in the Office apps, which is not what's happening. If you talk to any Microsoft customer, I think they would all tell you the same thing.
It's pretty fast.
Slow down.
Yeah.
But to me, the big thing here is that if you go back to the beginning of 2024, which remember was right in the wake or in the midst of really the Sam Altman drama at OpenAI and what's going on there, and Microsoft bet so much, there have been at least 3 major reorgs at Microsoft based on AI, right? There was the creation of the Microsoft AI organization, they called it, this kind of weird group that sits outside of all the other groups and is led by I forgot his name. Sorry, Suleiman, the guy from.
Suleiman. Yeah, Mustafa Suleiman. Yeah,
Mustafa. Thank you. I didn't write about this at the time, but I saw him at Build, and he was the guy who did the day 2 keynote that got interrupted by the protesters. But Jay Parikh, who used to be the software, the head of engineering for Meta, is going to. They hired him in October to be the AI apps czar. What are we just making stuff up now? Like, what are you talking about? We have a Microsoft AI organization. We have an AI apps czar. And now the LinkedIn CEO is going to run what he calls Office. And I'm like, what?
These get vetted thoroughly, right? These kind of releases. There's no way this is an accident.
Read what he wrote on LinkedIn, you will agree this was not vetted in the slightest.
Oh, okay.
The best part of this is I don't know if you saw it. I linked to it in the.
I can look. Yeah.
There's a graphic that accompanies this. And it's I don't know what this is. It's like the way people thinks it looks, and it's like a line that goes from school to insert to associate to manager to executive, and then it says how it can look, and it's like this mess of different ways with all these different points, and it's like, okay, what does this have to do with you running Office? Like what? It doesn't make any sense. So. Yeah, when you
it looks like a hat rack.
Yeah, there you go.
A hat rack that looks just like that graph.
Yeah. Yep. Anyway,
is this something to be promoting?
I don't know. This is what Office looks like at the top, and this is what it will look like by the time I'm done with it. Okay.
This was in his
It will
announcement?
be more colorful. That's cool. I like that. Yeah, that's in the announcement. I don't know. And he's going to run Office. So, yeah, I feel good about it. I know it's almost like someone realized I got enough sleep over the weekend or something. And they were like,
no, he can't. He may not sleep any longer.
Oh, jeez.
Okay. That is the weirdest picture I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why you would put that in a business communication.
I'm sure sometimes I communicate in a fashion where people are like, I don't know what's going on with that guy. But this thing is just unhinged. I don't know. We'll see.
And by the way, is this guy the right guy to run Office? Or I'm sorry.
I don't think, it doesn't exist. It definitely put him in charge of the product line that doesn't exist anymore. That's exactly what he's good for. I don't know. Anyway, this LinkedIn thing that he wrote is like, this is the CEO of LinkedIn. Wow. It's like on LinkedIn, just making no sense, which honestly is the most LinkedIn thing I've ever seen, if I'm being honest.
Wow.
Okay. Did I not? What did I do? I didn't have, I have a wrong link in here like an idiot. That's okay. So sometime, I think it was about a month ago, I'm sure we talked about this at the time, but Microsoft announced that they were going to, why do I not see this? Get rid of the password management and autofill features that are in the Microsoft Authenticator app, right?
Yeah, that's a little weird, to be honest.
So, right, and it's reasonable to ask, okay, why?
Yeah.
What's going on there? So just
maybe they don't want to compete. Maybe they're worried about antitrust action.
I doubt it. But so, I think most people are familiar with the notion of authenticator apps. The Microsoft Authenticator app works particularly well with Microsoft accounts, meaning both the consumer Microsoft accounts and Enter ID accounts.
Well, you have to have it, right? If you want to do
I actually really like the way they do things because they mix it up, right? So it's not always like just type 1 of 3 codes. Sometimes it will send you a number and say, put that into the app. And sometimes
I like that.
But
if you want to do passwordless for your login on the Windows, you have to use Authenticator, right?
Yeah, you could use a passkey, right?
Oh, you can. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you could do that, and passkeys complicate things in some ways.
How would you do a passkey on Windows if you haven't
Windows
logged in
can save passkeys? So you couldn't do it the first time you logged in. You would probably use an authenticator app, or you could whatever your secondary verification was. But once you do that, it actually creates a passkey, and then you can use pass through there.
Because Steve Gibson was really praising this move. I mean, I think this is an improvement in security. But he didn't. He said, but you have to use the Microsoft Authenticator app.
Well.
Look, it's not the end of the world.
There's a lot that goes into this, honestly, and
it's better security, I think. Frankly,
one of the little roundabout things you can get into is I use what do I use, Paul? I can't remember. Proton Pass, which, you know, password managers are really like identity managers, right? So obviously they do autofill on mobile.
That's what they really
and on
do.
desktop.
Yeah.
But they do things like credit card numbers, obviously, and there's all this additional stuff. But one of the things they're starting to do is passkeys. And passkeys, that gets you into a weird area because you don't really want only one app that does everything because, for example, you should be using 2FA to get into the password manager to begin with, and you can't. You don't want that in there. Like it's like
you wouldn't use passkeys to get into your passkeys either. That would be probably
right. So
bad.
yeah, but one of the fun things I do on mobile is I'll be like I'll open like I did this yesterday, Private Vault, which is part of OneDrive, which is an app on mobile, and you go in and you have to authenticate. So the Windows, the Microsoft Authenticator app comes up. And then you put your thumbprint on, and then you're just in, and you're like, okay, so was that secure? I guess it was. Like it feels weird sometimes, but it's important that these two things are separate, but also that you don't want to have a million of these things around. You don't want to have. I mean, people. We talked about this at some point. People move from browser to browser, and they keep their password. They don't think about it, so the passwords are out there in a million different places, probably. Anyway,
that's why you use a password manager.
Yes. And by the way, I would add one phrase to that, which is use a third-party password manager.
Yeah.
Don't use the Microsoft, the Google one, the Apple one. Like, you want something that's going to work everywhere and identically everywhere and work well everywhere. We all know the big ones, but 1Password, Bitwarden, Dashlane, and the one
1Password and Bitwarden are both sponsors. I should mention.
Okay, but they are the best, right? Yep. And so any of those, are fine. And they work everywhere. That's really the point. And they're seamless.
And they do passkeys too, which is great.
Passkeys are fantastic. I love passkeys I sign into my password manager, and then I sign into my Google account, and the passkey choices come up, and I select the one I want, and I'm in. And it's the best.
Actually, for some reason, our Workspace account, I think passkeys are not enabled by default in Google Workspace. So I had to talk to our IT guy, and I said, "Can you enable that?" And he said, "It's for some reason Google." Who is a big supporter of passkeys, says it's still in beta in the enterprise, which is weird. But I was surprised that yesterday I was logging into Wired, and I have a Condé Nast subscription.
Yes.
They support passkeys now.
Oh, directly, right.
Yeah,
right,
which is really good. I mean, more and more places are supporting passkeys.
Yeah, a good password manager will tell you when one of the accounts that it's protecting has a better way to authenticate.
Yeah.
So maybe it's a 2FA thing and an authenticator app. Maybe it's a passkey, whatever it is. Like it will actually tell you. So the goal is to automate that as much as possible. Do the right thing every time.
Fastmail uses passkeys. I use passkeys wherever I can. GitHub
but also,
does
like Amazon uses passkeys. Amazon was an early adopter of passkeys. They do a good job. But I also have it set up in such a way that I will use my passkey, and then it sends me an OTP on my phone anyway. It's like, or Adobe, which is hilarious, will send me. You put your username in, and then it sends you a pass. It's like, do you have a passkey? I'm like, yes. I use the passkey. This is okay. Good. Now enter your password.
No.
Like Adobe is the worst. Like they're just stupid. Hey.
See, I really want ways to delete. This is why I thought what Microsoft did with passwordless was very cool, because it really emphasized you don't need a password.
That's right.
Because passkeys is even more secure.
It's better not to have it. It's one less app.
Better not to have it. That's right.
So the two things I just wanted to communicate about this, because the reason I mentioned this today is they've started alerting people in the app. So if you use Microsoft Authenticator, you will have seen a pop-up that says, hey, by the way, this is going away. Here's what you can do or whatever. And what you can do is not ever use Microsoft password management. Jesus, guys, come on. Like, use a third party. So the first one is third-party password manager, and I listed the good ones. But the second one is to use this app solely for Microsoft account authentication purposes, 2FA verification. It's awesome for that. The one thing it doesn't do is have any sort of cloud sync. And there's some controversy here because the Google one doesn't have true end-to-end encryption, but it is actually encrypted at rest and in transit and all that stuff. But Google Authenticator saves it to your account. And what I have to say, I love signing into my Google account on the phone and just getting it. Like I don't have to recreate it. I don't have to back up and restore. The problem with that stuff is sometimes maybe you lose your phone or whatever, or something's wrong. And like manually going back, and which I've done so many times, creating all of those accounts again in an authenticator app is a nightmare. It's possible. I mean, I've done it a bunch, but having it sync is, I don't know, that might outweigh the small fear you might have about whatever. But so but the question I think people are asking is, well, why are they doing this, right? If you're in the Microsoft ecosystem and you use Microsoft products and you're on mobile, so you're using an iPhone or Android, you've probably seen you can use Microsoft Edge, the browser, or Microsoft Authenticator, the app, as your autofill provider for passwords and whatever else. They're working off the same backend data store. So the fact that they're removing this capability from Authenticator suggests to me that maybe they're trying to push people to Edge, right? Yeah. But here's the thing. You can just install Edge, sign in with your Microsoft account, because it's going to auto go through, right? You've already done this authentication work on the phone. It will have the passwords in there. And then you can pass them through. You can use that for autofill. But don't do that, really, because get rid of the Microsoft thing and use a third-party auto.
Just use a third-party password manager. Yes.
So don't use that. But you could do that. So my guess is that's why. But I don't.
And most, by the way, good third-party password managers will import those Edge passwords, so you could move it over to Edge.
Yeah, and
import it and then delete them from Edge.
This is very standard. So all password managers support the same format for import, export.
Right.
And then there's,
a lot of times they say, hey, do you want me to move all your, at least Bitwarden used to do this, do you want me to move all the passwords out of Chrome or Edge or Firefox?
If you are using Authenticator, Microsoft will do the work for you. They'll actually delete those, right? So they're going to, except they won't delete them from the cloud. So you can't, in the Authenticator app, go and select all, delete. Right?
Oh, really?
But you can in Microsoft Edge. So at least in the desktop version of the browser. So do that. Use it that one time for that. Install Chrome and then never use it again. That's the best.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
That's the best policy. But that's just me. Okay. And speaking of things people love, the new Outlook for Windows is now on a monthly update cadence, and they're actually starting to add features that people really want, like the ability to disable Copilot. Right, which is probably the big one. But also they're starting to implement this PST file support, which is one of the biggest complaints that, people had in the 1990s. I literally, like 97, 98, I carried around a PST file in a floppy disk in my pocket because these things were so unreliable. When the Outlook first came out, I had to have a backup of this thing, and it was everything. It was your whole life, right, in the PST file, right?
Right.
So PST. They changed the format at one point, but PST is carried through this entire time. It's still a major part of the desktop, the old version, the classic version of Outlook. And they're starting to add that compatibility to the new version so they can phase out the old version. So that's starting to happen. If you're a consumer account, you can move emails between accounts. That's something that didn't work before. Better offline support. So instead of 7 days of email by default for offline use, it's 30 days now, that kind of stuff. So it's getting there. I'm not saying it's perfect. But I am saying you complain too much. Back in, I don't know, maybe March, February, something like that. Oh, it must have been March, because I think it was part of the big Copilot Wave 2 announcements. Microsoft announced these 2 AI reasoning agents, Researcher and Analyst, for Microsoft 365 Copilot. Those are both generally available. I'm surprised they don't have one called legal or lawyer, which is maybe is necessary at this point because people seem to be using that a little too much. But these are the things where these agents will go out on your behalf and research, deep topics and come back after some period of time and do that kind of analytical work. So I don't have much experience with this other than that I did something like this in Gemini where I have this standard query I ask all AI agents just to compare the results. And when I did this with Gemini, it provided me with the same results, but just a lot slower. So if you feel like you need that waiting period, I guess this is the way to go. So that's part of that. Again, months ago, I don't remember the timing of anything, but OpenAI blew everyone away several months ago when they announced that Sora tool for transforming text prompts into videos. Since then, of course, Google just did their Veo stuff at I/O. That was amazing. Microsoft has a history now of taking paid OpenAI products and making them available for free, and sometimes in limited form. So there's now a Sora-based Bing video creator that transforms text prompts into short videos. Lots of limitations on this compared to the OpenAI tool. So it's on the phone only, so you have to install the Bing app for now. So they finally figured out a way to get people to install Bing. It's pretty cool, actually. It's free. It's only on your phone. Right now, it only does like 9:16 portrait videos. It will do 16:9 soon. It's limited to 5 seconds in length for videos, where SAR is 60 seconds. And the free version can only make 10 of these at the fast speed every month, after which you can just use standard speed, or you can actually, speaking of Zune, you can spend Microsoft reward points to make more videos at fast speed. Jeez, seriously, I don't know. Like this, the language of this stuff is so insane. Basically getting AI credits with Microsoft reward points, which is a nonsense sentence. I'm sorry I said it. But it's in the phone. It's coming to the web, so you'll be able to do it on a desktop soon. They'll do 16:9 soon. I assume they're going to expand the availability to be longer videos, maybe for people to pay or whatever it is. But I have to say, I did make a couple of videos with this. It's pretty cool. Like, I've been doing this with the Firefly stuff that Adobe offers through Creative Cloud, which is kind of amazing because in that case, one of the options, you can actually choose between, I think they call it graphics or images and photorealistic or whatever. And the photorealistic ones are like, yikes, like they're pretty good. But I look at this. I mean, this is worth looking at. It's pretty cool. It's not there today, but soon, if you go to bing.com/create, you'll be able to access it there on the web as well.
Nice.
Okay. A couple more real quick. These are just kind of industry stuff. The New York Times infamously is suing OpenAI and Microsoft for copyright infringement. They did a pretty good job of demonstrating that these things stole from their paywalled content, but okay, we'll see what happens there. But this past week, they announced a licensing agreement with Amazon. So Amazon's going to be able to use content from the New York Times across its AI platforms, both for training, but also in their end user products. So we're going to be seeing this in, Alexa-based implementation somehow. So if you have an Echo speaker or whatever, you'll be getting the horrible news that the New York Times writes. So have fun with that. This one's just a rumor, but this is interesting to me because Samsung is such a big partner with Google on Android, and Android 16, there's a whole like Samsung interplay thing there going on where like live notifications, which are very similar to that dynamic island thing on the iPhone, is appearing first on Samsung, but going to be part of Android. They're doing desktop mode, which is based on Plex, and the improvements Google made are feeding back into Plex, and is not Plex. I'm sorry, Dex, the desktop environment. It's really interesting. But according to again Mark Gurman, Samsung and Perplexity could announce an integration agreement on their devices that could start as early as the S26 devices. And if that happens, this might be the default AI on Samsung's devices, not Gemini. So that's kind of, it's interesting. And maybe they're just playing the two companies against each other. I don't know, but I did not expect to see that. If anything, I thought these guys were getting closer together. I don't know. I don't know.
I like your AI generated picture for the New York Times Amazon thing.
Yeah.
That's
if you search my site for New York Times, you'll actually see 2, 3, 5, whatever like images like that, because every time I do a New York Times article like this, I use that AI thing. And they actually look like they're of a family of like AI robots or something. It's kind of funny.
They're all in the family together. Mm-hmm. How cute is that?
The last one, the robot was stealing the paper and running away from the paper boy because they were stealing the content. But now
that's good. I like that.
Yeah.
What do you use to do this? Is that Copilot?
Microsoft Designer, which is it's OpenAI based, but through Microsoft.
Yeah. Okie dokie. Let's see. I guess we've got an Xbox segment coming up. Are you ready? Let's do a brief sponsor mention, and then we will get into... Now, why is that doing that? I don't want to see that. I want to see me. There we go. Let's get into the Xbox news. What are we going to do in replacing the whiskey pick? Because Richard's not here, I guess.
Right. Actually, let me talk. I'm going to talk about spritzes a little bit. I didn't put this in the notes, but this is something. There's been these interesting trends that are occurring in cocktails that have occurred this year that I think are maybe worth mentioning.
All right, good. I like that.
And that's one of the big ones. Spritzes.
We have shrubs. You ever have a shrub?
Yeah, it's like it's like Zune squirting. It's like could you spritz me with your Zune?
Me with your alcoholic beverage.
I sprung a leak. I don't know what's going on here.
Spritzing. All right. This episode of Windows Weekly with Paul Thurrott, brought to you by US Cloud. You've heard me talk about those wonderful people, the number one Microsoft Unified Support replacement. It's funny because when I first met him, I said, "What do you have to do with the cloud?" No. We are the global leader in third-party Microsoft support for enterprises. Oh, okay. Supporting 50 of the Fortune 500. Now I feel dumb. You are the big guys, right? Well, here's why. Switching to US Cloud can save your business 30 to 50% over Microsoft's unified or premier support. 30 to 50%. Of course, saving money wouldn't be any good if it weren't as good as Microsoft. How about if it's better? It's faster, twice as fast, average time to resolution versus Microsoft. And US Cloud has the best engineers. You're getting support from the smartest, best US-based engineers. I said, how do you do that? They said, we have great benefits, great salaries. We attract the best people, which means you get the best support. But there's another thing US Cloud does, and I somehow doubt Microsoft will ever do this. They'll help you save on your Azure expenses. Yeah, Microsoft's not interested in that one. US Cloud will, though. They have a brand new offering, their Azure Cost Optimization Services. When was the last time you evaluated your Azure usage? I mean, we're among friends here. I know, you got other things to worry about. It's probably been a while, which means you probably have some Azure sprawl going on, a little spend creep, right? Well, the good news is US Cloud makes it easier than ever to save on Azure. They offer an 8-week Azure engagement. It's powered by VBox. It'll identify key opportunities to reduce costs across your entire Azure environment. And you're going to get expert guidance from those brilliant US Cloud senior engineers with an average of over 16 years experience with Microsoft products. They know their stuff. At the end of 8 weeks, your interactive dashboard will identify rebuild and downscale opportunities, unused resources. You'll go, wow, I'm gonna really save without in any way reducing my Azure capabilities, right? Now you could take that money, reallocate it, those ID dollars, I know they're precious, towards things you really need. One way you could keep the savings going, you could invest your Azure savings in US Cloud's Microsoft support, like a few of US Cloud's other customers. Completely eliminate your unified spend. Let the savings continue. So here's somebody who did this. Sam, he's the technical operations manager at Bede Gaming, B-E-D-E Gaming. He gave US Cloud 5 stars. This is his review. Quote, "We found some things that have been running for 3 years, which no one was checking. These VMs were, I don't know, 10 grand a month. Not a massive chunk in the grand scheme of how much we spend on Azure, but once you get to $40,000 or $50,000 a month, it really starts to add up." Yeah, you bet. It's simple. Stop overpaying for Azure, identify and eliminate Azure creep, and boost your performance all in 8 weeks with US Cloud. Visit uscloud.com right now. Book a call. Find out how much your team can save. That's uscloud.com to book a call today and get faster Microsoft support for less. Can I also say better? Faster, better Microsoft support for less. Thank you, US Cloud, for supporting Windows Weekly. A lot of customers of Microsoft support here. I would betcha. I'd betcha. Let's talk Xbox gaming, Mr. Paul Thurrott.
Yeah, this is the fourth of the 4 big controversial stories from this week.
Wow.
Yeah, there's a report in Windows Central that Microsoft has now delayed its first-party Xbox/Windows gaming handheld, which could have come out as soon as this holiday season. They're going to focus on the third-party stuff. We know there are at least a couple of companies that will come out with these things. Right now, they're Windows handheld gaming devices, right? They're not really Xbox, but I'm not sure what to say here. I'm not sure how many more delays or, holding patterns or whatever you want to call it that Xbox can withstand as a platform, but here we are. So I have this now long-running theory that Microsoft wants to base Xbox as a hardware platform around ARM, right? And this is based on some leaks that came out a couple of years ago around the Xbox platform. They were looking at the time at making the next Xbox console be ARM-based. And, today that's Snapdragon, the Qualcomm chipset, which the second gen of will be announced in September, and we'll see what that entails. But one of the big expectations and rumors is that much more powerful graphics, right? Which will help with that sort of thing, because all the existing Windows games have to be emulated. That's a problem. And, they've done some stuff in the platform to make that easier, like AutoSR and so forth. But, that needs to improve. And then the part I've kind of added to this, the part that I just sort of thought of was, well, if they're going to do that, it would make sense to have a consolidated Xbox platform that ran, across PC and the console, right? That the next gen software platform, they could do it as a requirement of developers who create games for Windows and or Xbox or both, right? That these should be maybe the same thing. It should be the same platform. And of course, for developers, I mean, I don't mean to say all that would mean is, but what that would mean is that, if you're in the store, you're in the Xbox platform, you're going to target ARM, but it would also run on x64, of course, right? And that will always run great. That's no problem. But it would just kind of add that ARM compatibility dynamic. And I think that is what would put a handheld gaming machine over the top for sure, right? Because, one of the things we've heard a lot, but especially this past week, is that if you have like a Steam Deck or I'm not sure which of the third-party devices, but I think it's the Lenovo device, where you can get SteamOS or Windows, SteamOS runs way better, right?
Oh, really?
And so yeah, because it's based on Linux, it's lighter weight, better battery life, etc. The trade-off there is that the selection of games isn't as big. So if you can live with what's available through Steam, the Steam store, and thus on Steam Deck / Linux, which is not horrible, by the way, but is a subset of what's on
Steam
Windows.
Deck was originally Linux, and the Legion was originally Windows, right? But you could...
You can mix them. Yeah. So if you have a Steam Deck, you can install Windows.
Oh, okay.
Right. If you have I forget which one it is, the Legion, I guess, the Lenovo, you can choose between the two. And I guess if you get Windows, you could install SteamOS, right?
Right.
And what people are finding is if they install SteamOS, it starts working a lot better. So this is a problem. This has been a problem. Windows is a big general purpose thing. It does, it does everything, right? So Xbox, if you think about the Xbox platform we've had since Xbox One, so we're 2011 or 2013, whatever year that was. This is Hyper-V, Windows-based, where, you have a couple things running at once. So it is stripped down. Is there some version of Windows, that would make sense on both Windows or the Xbox console that would actually run the same apps and games? Well, games really, right? Games are the big thing. Maybe. We'll see. So for now, we're in this little bit of a blip, and I'm not sure if it's real or not. So for whatever reason, handheld gaming PCs, to be clear, this is the thing that's a screen with the two halves of the controller, like a Steam Deck type device or like a Nintendo Switch type device, are kind of they're having a moment, right? I don't know how big of a market this is. I don't know how sustainable or long-term it is. I'm worried that this could be like netbooks or mini tablets where the compromise is too great and they don't have any staying power. And that for a brief period of time, it's like, oh my God, this is going to rejuvenate the industry. And I'm not sure that's the case. There's also something, I did put this in the notes, thankfully. I've heard now from two different sources that there are going to be more layoffs at Microsoft this month. A lot of it's going to be in the Xbox area. And that Amy Hood is casting more of a serious eye on businesses that are not profitable. And, Satya Nadella has always kind of demanded this, but now it's like, okay, you've had X number of years, show us the money. If you're not going to make it, then you're going to have to make further cuts. And it's possible that this handheld gaming thing fell to that maybe Phil Spencer went before this. I'm just making this up, by the way. I don't know that this happened, but that he went to, possibly he would have to go to the senior leadership team and say, we would like to make this device. And they would say, yeah, tell us the last time we made hardware that was profitable. Because no one can remember that day. And it was probably 1983 with that Apple add-in card for CPM, a long time ago. And they said no. And that might be part of it. But it also might be this holding pattern thing. Like, really what you want is not a halfway device that's still running on x86 that runs slower than the Steam Deck, that looks bad by comparison. Maybe what you really want is the ARM-based thing, which requires all the platform updates, requires the next-gen hardware. Maybe it's MediaTek plus NVIDIA. Maybe it's Snapdragon. Maybe it's Snapdragon plus NVIDIA, by the way, because that's something we already see through that Dell workstation that we mentioned a few weeks ago. So we can only speculate, but if this report is true, and I don't have any reason to doubt it, if you had your hopes set on this, I would, maybe scale them back, unfortunately. So, yes. In slightly better news, a couple of years ago, there was a group of quality assurance workers that were part of ZeniMax, which is a Microsoft-owned game studio that was part of Bethesda. It still is part of Bethesda, but owned by Microsoft, that wanted to unionize. And Microsoft was like, yeah, okay, we'll support that. And they've spent the past 2 years in negotiations over this new contract and unionization, and Microsoft has agreed to their demands or whatever. So it took a while, and it still has to be ratified by the union. But what this gives them is basically everything they were asking for, right? Which is protection against being dismissed arbitrarily, grievance procedures, in-game credit for the work they did in the game, which is pretty cool, right? Like kind of original Activision type stuff. There's a separate AI agreement that they reached earlier, which is basically that Microsoft can't just come down and fire everyone and say, sorry, we have AI now for this. They have to give employees a chance to show that, maybe they could use the AI to do their work, or they're not just going to get rid of people for that reason. But the big one to me is actually just pay. So the minimum salary going into this was a little over, or almost $21 per hour. That goes up to 25 immediately, and it's going to go up again to 28 and some change in just a couple of months. So it's a big pay raise too. Well, at least on the base level employees. So there are other unionization processes occurring. There's an Activision Blizzard or an Activision QA team that also voted to unionize, and we'll see how that goes. And then Raven, which I can't follow the trajectory of this stuff anymore, but Raven was a company that was created to build games based on the early id Software stuff. Remember, they had like Heretic and Hexen that were based on the Doom engines, is through whatever series of acquisitions is part of Activision, is actually suing Activision and Microsoft Corp as the corporate parent because of bad faith bargaining practices. So there's all kinds of stuff going on with the unions, but a little bit of good news in there too. And then this one, this is kind of a weird one to me. Jay Allard should be best known as being, I believe, the earliest, or maybe one of the earliest people to try to wake Bill Gates up to the internet in the early 1990s.
He wrote that memo.
Yeah. He was one of 3 people who played key roles in that. Yeah. And it's not clear to me, just off the top of my head, which one was actually first, but I think it might be Jay Allard, but he was ignored for a long time. But he was right.
He's best known as the man behind the Xbox.
That's right. Yeah. So he played a major role in the Xbox. He also played a major role in the Zune, which I think counterbalances that nicely. But it's weird to me that he's probably best known among enthusiasts for having created this thing called the Courier tablet, which
it's so funny. On Sunday, we were talking about it because we had Lou Maresca from Microsoft on, and he knew the whole story. Yeah. We talked about Courier.
This is worth this. If you're interested in Courier, if you actually believe that this thing ever made any sense or was going to make a difference in the world, strongly recommend reading the Steven Sinofsky book again. This comes up twice. Steven was unfairly accused of killing this project.
Yeah, that's what we said on Sunday. It was Steven that did it.
Yeah, it's a little,
because he didn't want another Windows. He was in charge of Windows. He didn't want another competing. Oh,
this is before that. He was actually Office related. He was like. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I'm mixing these things up. Sorry. The Office thing was sorry, I forget. There's something else. It's a different project. This one was Windows, but he's like, what is this thing? Like, this is not running our platform? Is there an app?
Well, it was supposed to be that new Windows, right? What was it, Windows X?
It was just a concept drawing. There was never like a thing. They never came up like, here's the hardware, here's the, he just made it up, But people are like, oh, if they had just done this, they would have won everything. And it's like, Microsoft actually has a rich history of inventing things and not bringing them to market, or bringing them to market and failing, and then something else takes off, right? And so I'm sorry, but this would have made it.
It was they later did release kind of a Courier-like device?
Well, you're talking
Neo
about the
or
Surface Duo thing, or
the
whatever.
Duo? Yeah.
Yeah, I was too little, too
Wasn't
late in
the
the
same.
line. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, there are folding devices now. Good. Let's put out a 2-screen device.
And they did that TV, that phone with the 2 screens.
That's the Duo. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, you're talking about Neo. Neo is the one they never
Neo.
released. They never
Yeah,
released Neo.
never
Yeah.
released that. Okay.
Yeah, stupid. It was a stupid idea. So, yes. Anyway, Jay Allard, I for whatever reason, it kind of bugs me because he did some great things. I think most people kind of know him for Courier, but what people might not realize is this guy kind of disappeared, and he's one of, actually, it might have been thousands. I know so many people who worked at or were executives at Microsoft, left the company, and then went to Amazon. And a lot of them
are they following Panos Panay?
Well, Jay Allard is not, but interestingly, since Panos Panay did this, Ralph Groen, who was the head of the design team for Surface originally and then Windows and Devices, has since followed him there. And Jay Allard I think it was last, I don't know, October-ish, also revealed he is also working at Amazon. It has nothing to do with Panos Panay per se, although probably related, right? Because he's
on the devices and services team. I think he'll be working for Panos.
So they're probably working together. But so we're this is not really getting the gang back together. These guys never worked together or anything like that. If anything, they were probably butting heads at one point, if they ever even interacted. But it doesn't really matter. The one thing they both have in common is they both have failed hardware that they made for Microsoft. So have fun at Amazon.
But they're good hardware guys. I think Amazon needs hardware guys.
So my issue here is only that Amazon doesn't make good hardware. So, it's like the story with Panos, as I understand it, this is not necessarily a fact, but this is what I've been told, and I've heard this from multiple people, is, they were making cuts. And he's like, I can't be here if we're not going to we have to do all the stuff I want. He had all these ideas. And they were like, yeah, we can't do that. You're not making any money. And it's like, so where do you go? You go to this company that has even less money. Well, or I should say, has less money they're willing to spend on anything.
Right.
And they put
have
out
plenty of money, but they're not spending it on Echo.
They're not spending it on devices. Yeah. So, look, they could surprise me. We'll see. But it is interesting. The thing he's working on, I hate this. This is like an Apple phrase. According to this is a third-party report, right? This is not like he didn't say this himself, but he is overseeing a team. Well, actually, maybe he did say this. This is JL, and he probably did say this. They're working on breakthrough consumer products. Okay. So everyone's like, I hope it's the Courier tablet. And I'm like, you know what? I do too. I hope it is too.
That would be funny.
That would be great.
He's on the 01 team.
Yeah.
Which I think is related to the always day one memo that's Amazon's famous for.
Yep. I hope he's the zero part of that. But yeah, go on. Yep.
Breakthrough consumer products. You know what? I'd like to see that from Amazon.
Here's a fun fact about Jay Allard. Briefly worked at Intellivision, which is Amico. Yeah. So, and those guys are going gangbusters. So he's like the Midas touch.
Wow.
Yep.
I think Xbox did okay under him. Yeah.
I don't know.
Maybe not the Zune.
If you want to look at the Red Ring of Death, there's a little cabal of characters there that he is one of.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Okay, that's a good point.
I don't know. But he's part of it. I mean, look, the whole point of Xbox, which was they had gone from WinG to DirectX, and they were like, we got to build hardware around this. And the decision was, do we make this a Windows PC, which is how they went with Media Center and tablet PC, or do we go the device route? And it's interesting because you would call that the device route, but the first Xbox was a PC, right? It was a Intel Celeron. It was a PC. I mean, it was a PC.
Was it running Windows or Windows CE?
Windows CE, but the hardware was, well, I'm not even sure it was Windows CE, but the hardware was just straight up Intel x86. It was a Celeron processor. It was a hard drive. There was, it was just x86. So anyway, it's okay. I guess all I'm really saying is I wouldn't bet your life on this.
Okay.
Don't get too excited, but it is happening. It's worth knowing about.
I would like to see Amazon do something interesting.
I would too. I just bought a Kindle Fire tablet just to check in, and yep, they're just as terrible as I remember.
They're awful. They're awful. I like the Kindle Scribe, but I mostly use a Kobo reader, a competitor.
I would read on a Kindle if I could actually run apps, even if it was a little slow just for reading, but it's just Kindle. And I'm like, but I read here, and here,
Right.
So
well, that's that old thing. I wish they still had the New York Times, on it. And I wish you used to be able to have a daily mail from Pocket, I think it was. Of course,
you still do, by the way. Still do. No, still but Pocket's gone, but that newsletter is going to persist. So that's
good.
You can still get that.
Well, how will I send it?
Well, you can't save it to Pocket, Leo. You could. I just open them in a browser and save it to Instapaper.
Oh, okay.
There's different ways.
There you go.
Yeah, you can do different things.
All right. Well done. Bravo. A fabulous Xbox segment. We are going to get to the back of the book in just a second. Paul Thurrott is here. Richard Campbell I realized he says he's on safari in South Africa, but I also realized the Edmonton Oilers will be playing in Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Finals.
You're going to see him on TV in the front row.
I think he'll be at Rogers Place.
It's like my son was on curfew or whatever. He was in trouble for something, and my wife was like, "You can go to the gym, but you have to send us a picture from the gym." So he sent a photo, and we both saw it. We're like, "Yeah, okay." And then my wife's like, "Hold on a second," and she zoomed in on the TV in the background, and it was a Patriots game on TV, and it was August or July or something. She goes, "Nope." So I looked it up on the Apple whatever the thing was called at the time, and he was like behind a building with his friends in the Scooby van, and I was like, "All right, I'm gonna go get him."
Kids.
So maybe he's doing that. I don't know.
I remember somebody posting on Twitter a picture of a flat tire and said, "Just save this for the next time you're late to work."
Exactly. But it's snowing in the picture. I don't understand. I know it's crazy out. That's why we got in the car accident.
Back of the book, just around the corner. But ladies and gentlemen, first I want to put a little plug in for something we like to call Club Twit, the best darn club in the world. We'd love to have you as a member of Club Twit. It still says $7 a month on here. That's the legacy pricing. It is now, if you are not yet a member, $10 a month. I warned you that we were going to be raising prices. I think it's still a hell of a deal. At $10 a month, you get so much. Why does it say that? Let me show it again. Now it says $10 a month. You get so much for your $10, $120 a year. Ad-free versions of this show, but every other show we do. That's a lot of content. You also get access to the wonderful Club Twit Discord, which is a great hang for everybody, whether you're watching a show or not, because the Discord is full of people like you who are having a great time talking about all the things geeks are interested in. We also do a lot of events in the Discord. In fact, the next event will be the Worldwide Developers. Wait a minute. No, the next event's Friday. Our AI user group at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern. I think Lou Maresca is going to join us. Anthony Nielsen. We're going to do a little vibe coding, show you what vibe coding looks like. Darren, I hope you'll join me as well. Darren Oakey in our chat room does a lot of vibe coding. I saw, Darren, that Morgan Stanley said they've been using AI to save a lot of money. I have a feeling that Darren had a little something to do with that. That's just the caliber of people you get in the Club Twit Discord. Really fun people in there. WWDC will be in the club only. Now, we've changed how we do our keynotes. You might have noticed that Build was in the club only, as was Google I.O. To avoid takedowns on YouTube and Twitch, which has happened with Apple, we decided, we're just going to do it all in private for the club. So you get special velvet rope access. Monday, Micah Sargent and I are bringing our lunch boxes because we're not only going to do the 10 a.m. big public keynote, we're also going to do the 1 p.m. State of the Union keynote, which is really more developer focused. So that's going to be a lot of fun. You have to be a club member to see that. If you can't be there live on Monday, we will put it in the Twit Plus feed. Again, club members only. We've got a photo time coming up on June 13th with Chris Marquardt, Micah's Crafting Corner. There's lots of special events. We've got a Stacy's Book Club around the corner. Yes, you are fun, you Club Twit members. It's exclusive, but it's not expensive. $10 a month. If you want to know more, please join the club. It makes a big difference to us. Yes, we have advertising. That only covers about 75% of our costs. The club makes up the other 25%. That's how important it is to us. Without the club, we'd have to cut shows, cut staff. We don't want to do that. Help us make the programming you love. It's kind of like casting a vote to support what we do here at Twit. Twit.tv/Club Twit. Join the club. We'd love to have you. Now to the back of the book. Welcome to the family. Paul, well, let's see. Let's start with the tips, shall we?
Indeed. Yeah. So if you think back to February when I was visiting Richard in Puerto Vallarta.
Oh, yeah.
Puerto Vallarta.
Yes.
Google, YouTube, whatever, cut me off from my YouTube channel, and separated me from the content that's there. And
shocked.
And with no warning.
Yes.
No, hey, could you change this thing or fix something or whatever it was they were looking for? I have no idea. They never came up with an answer. They were useless. I would have gotten locked out of that forever. I just got lucky that Brad had a signing, like a 2FA authenticator in his authenticator from 5 years ago. He just sitting there unused, just in there. And he was like, this is a long shot, but he's like, I think I used to use this. Let me look. And he's like, oh my God, it's in there. Oh, geez, here we go. Oh my God, what are you doing? My phone just, I don't know. Is that
Brad?
No, the phone just said, it sounds like you had a really difficult.
Oh, you said the G word. I know.
But
Google's gotten very jumpy.
Crazy. I literally flipped this phone over so it wouldn't listen to me.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's a little lesson in itself, right? Anywho.
It's always listening, Paul. Always.
Yeah. So, look, between all the insurtification stuff in OneDrive over the past couple of years and everything else, it's, I've been just kind of shifting things over, not so much just I'm going to be like a hermit living in a cabin in the mountains or anything, but not to rely solely on these big tech things. I want to make sure my data is in different places and I can access it and do whatever. And so one of the things I started planning, again, because I had one in the past, it got old fashioned, I never replaced it, was a NAS, network attached storage. So I couldn't buy it in Mexico because everything there is too expensive. Everything electronic related is too expensive. But that gave me some time to kind of think about it and go over some things and whatever. And when I got home, I ordered a Synology NAS.
Oh, right? Good.
So I'm going to get a second one, and I'm going to put that in Mexico, and they can talk to each other.
Yes, and they'll back up to each other, so you're mirroring.
Yeah, so that's kind of cool. But in the meantime, I just have the one. So I've been kind of experimenting with it. And I have to say, this stuff has improved to the point where it does a lot more than the NAS I had before, right? So obviously, you can have file access locally over the network. Okay, that works great. Remote access, which got turned off on my old NAS over time as it went out of support, but Synology has amazing remote access stuff, which I just actually wrote about today. But they also have these clients, right? And so you have a client, there's a client for photos. You can put it on your phone. It backs up to Synology. I'm like, okay, that's cool. That works great. They have something called Synology desktop client, the desktop client, right? So, and this works like the OneDrive client or the Google Drive client or Box or Dropbox or whatever it is. And on Windows and Mac, not on Linux, interestingly, although I think that might be coming eventually, it does the on-demand thing. So you can select files or photos and be like, I want this thing to always be available when offline. And, it does the seamless kind of background sync. So I was like, well, I got 2 trips coming up. I went to Seattle for Build. I was gone for 5 days or whatever that was. Then the Memorial Day weekend, we were way up in the Finger Lakes. And then I was doing stuff on my phone. So I was like, I can access this stuff in all the ways I do out in the world, and we see how it goes. And honestly, in retrospect, I feel like I should have known this was going to be fine, because with on demand,
it's a little scary though, isn't it?
It is scary, yeah. But as of last weekend, I actually switched everything over entirely to this. So I still have stuff up in OneDrive and Google Drive, and eventually I'm going to back up to those services as well. But I'm just using Synology Drive now, and it works. It's just seamless. It works perfectly well. So I have this thing where, So this becomes
your desktop, or
this becomes
is this more like
system
Dropbox?
Yeah. So it's like Dropbox or Google Drive or whatever. So I use in Windows File Explorer, I have these locations that are in the navigation pane that used to be OneDrive, and then they were eventually Google Drive. And now they're Synology, and there's no difference. Everything I do works.
At home, they're probably faster because they're on the LAN.
Honestly, I don't notice it at all. Because it's just syncing in the background. It actually kind of doesn't matter.
So you're working locally. The files are local when you work on
most of them are, yeah. So I have these, like the book folder is all local. The my to-do folder, which is most of my site stuff, is all local. So I could be on a plane. It will sync when I connect. I've noticed, it's only been less than a week for everything, and it's been maybe 2 to 3 weeks for some things. I switched these things over in phases, but it's gone so well. I can't believe how good it is. Like
I'm going to have to try this because I've been using my Synology kind of in an old school way.
That's how I thought I was going to use it originally, but
just
then
as a backup system.
Right. But while I was in Mexico, I'm researching this and I was like, wait a minute, I'm like, this can't be as good as they're describing, right? There's no way. But then as I used it, I was like, oh my God, this is way better than I thought it was going to be. It's way better.
I'm going to have to try this.
It's really neat.
So you have a desktop client and then you have some software running on the Synology, right?
Yeah, the server version. It's in the server. It's called desktop. I don't know what it's called. Synology Drive Server, I think is the name of it. It's a. I'm not up on the language yet, but it's whatever those packages you install are.
Synology has applications packages.
Yeah, they have add on to Docker.
Yeah.
Speaking of Docker.
Yeah, once you put Docker on your Synology, really you can run anything.
But there's even there's stuff that I thought I was going to do this other stuff that I think like now I'm probably not going to have to. Like one of the things I'm not really going to spend a lot of time doing is like media streaming, although I have hundreds and hundreds of movies and stuff.
You could put Plex on it and use it for that.
I could, but the thing is like you can just access it over the network. So if I want to watch it,
right.
I've streamed Star Wars. It's 1080p, not 4K, but Star Wars over the cell network to my phone from upstate New York, and it was perfect. Like just out of the Synology Drive client. I didn't even, you know what I mean? It's not a Plex server. I just streamed right from the...
It's just a file server.
It just works great. Like it's surprisingly great. So I don't know. Look, I'm not the hermit. I'm not saying drop all your big stuff. It's evil, walk away. But like for me, this kind of shifts the focus a little bit. Like I thought I would maybe keep using Google Drive and back up to Synology or whatever, right? But now I've kind of flipped the script on that. So Synology has become the main thing. And we'll see. It's only, like I said, it's been less than a week for everything. So maybe in 2 weeks I'll have a different story. But
I'm going to really have to try this.
I've been blown away by how well this works.
Do you use their Connect to...
Yes.
So that's how you get to... That's the nice thing. You don't have to have a dedicated static IP address even. Yep.
Well, actually, the way it works, I believe it. I don't think you do.
It's like Dyne DNS. It's a dynamic DNS.
Yeah.
So they're a NAT.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if you don't like that, because someone read this and said, "Well, hold on a second.
How secure
now you're
is that
beholden to Synology and blah blah blah." And I know it's not a big tech. It's like relax. But there are third-party solutions for this kind of thing.
You could totally put it on the internet, but I think
Well, you want to be careful there. But
yeah.
But over the local network, it's all the disks are encrypted. It's not just password and account protected. There's all these crazy protections built in for every range of attacks you can imagine. But does 2FA through an authenticator app, by the way. And when I attach from a Mac or Linux or Windows, if I go through the network, you have to sign in, do the 2FA authentication. I only get access to, I get access to everything. I'm the administrator, but I mean, I get access to my stuff, whatever's given to that account. It works normally of the local network as you would expect. But to me, it's the Connect to stuff that's kind of amazing because you get that web browser based desktop, front end desktop, whatever you want to call it, the dashboard, whatever it is, from anywhere. And then you get the file app access from anywhere on a mobile device. I'm just surprised by how seamless it all is. Like it works really, really well. I didn't expect this.
You've convinced me. I'm going to install it. And you can put it on your phone, right?
Yep. Yeah. No, I've done this. I've done things I would not do normally just because I just wanted to try it. But like I said, like streaming Star Wars to my phone from a cellular connection in the middle of nowhere doesn't make any sense, but it worked great.
It works.
I have the file app on my phone and my tablet, but I have the Photos app on my phone and back up to the Synology from there, which is great. I don't know. I look, like I said, not an insane person, but I could see people are like, I'm tired of this crap. I want to move on. I want to control my own data. Like, if you add something like this to the, whatever that is, the Protons, the Notions, the whatevers of the world, you have the makings of a complete solution that kind of cuts big tech out of the equation, if that's what you want. Wow. So it's there and it works great. And I'm really surprised. So
I am going to try it tonight.
Yeah, take a look. I'm curious what you think.
Yeah,
You know a lot more about this stuff than I do. I'm still kind of
I use SyncThing, and Synology has a community version of SyncThing you can run on Synology.
Yeah, so
but this you can see on this. If you use the Synology server, you can see the files and everything.
Yeah, so if you have Linux and you want to access like your files, like the way I just described, you could go over the network, obviously, but you could also use. They have a client for Linux, but what it doesn't support is on demand. So what you would have to do is go into it and say, well, this folder I want to sync, but but not the other folders. So you could do that, or you could use a third-party app, and SyncThing is one of the best ones, is my understanding.
Yeah,
I haven't tried it, but I believe it gives you some form of on-demand, so you can actually see every file that you have access to, and I believe sync two-way in real time. I think I've not tried it because I don't really need the Linux part of it. I just tested it, but it does not do on demand, the Synology client. That's common though, right? Like, I think there's no Dropbox, there's no Google Drive. There's
that's not on you. Yeah,
you have to go through third-party apps.
But I use it mostly with my Mac. I don't.
So when you use SyncThing, so I guess you've used it. Does it do this thing I'm talking about, where it's basically like on-demand sync? Like you can say, I always want this offline. And it actually works.
What basically the way SyncThing works is folders that are synchronized wherever it's installed.
It's between two computers. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. So one could be Synology, one could be a PC, one could be a PC, one could be a Mac, or whatever.
And I basically do that with my documents folder on all the devices I use. It's not great on mobile because of the limitations of iOS.
Yeah, but how often do you really need that? Like that's the fact that it's there at all to me is interesting, but. And it's important. Like every once in a while, there is something I actually do need.
Right.
Just the other night, I had something in OneDrive, the private vault thing, and I had it on my phone. It took forever to get into it, but I got it. It's good to be able to get it, but to me, it's more about the computers.
Right. And so I'm looking at this is one of the things that's so great about it. I'm looking at my Synology, which is across the room, and these are all the packages.
Right.
I can install. And then including web servers and then of course you install Docker, you can install anything Docker supports.
Right. There's also like an advantage to Docker aside from the whole container thing that it's self-contained. So if you switch NASs, if you buy a new NAS, you could just copy that thing out and put it on the new NAS, and it just kind of works. Like that's of interest if that's what you want, like for Plex server or whatever.
So it's what's it called? A Synology desktop server?
So actually go back to your desktop thing or whatever it's called. You already have it. Like, so
it's already installed.
If it's not on your desktop, click that thing in the top left and you should see top left. Sorry. And you should see in this view, Synology, what's the name of it? I don't have it in front of me. I'm sorry.
I have File Station. Is that what you're talking about?
No, it's not File Station. It's
Hyper Backup is what I use, by the way, and recommend for you to sync from one Synology to another off-site.
What is the name? It is called Synology Drive, and on the server it'd be Synology Drive.
Yes, I don't think I do have it.
So
installed.
do the search thing to see if it comes up. I'm surprised it's not just there. I assumed it was just part of it, but maybe you have to install it.
Yeah, you probably installed it.
Okay. Oh, there it is. It's the bottom group on the left.
Synology Drive server. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Yep.
Okay, and automatically. Okay,
great.
And then I have
by the way,
install the applications.
Yeah, right? This is a Celeron processor, right?
Yeah, it's not the fastest in the world, but
it's awesome so far. But that's what I meant.
This uses Node. Wow.
It uses like 2%. Like the CPU is 2% less all the time, and the RAM I upgraded it to I think 6 gigs of RAM. It's maybe 27% somewhere in there. Like it's fantastic.
Yeah. Anthony Nilsson says, he uses Synology Drive. It's just like Google Drive, basically.
I can't believe how good it is. I was like, maybe even if it's a little slow sometimes, maybe it'll be all right. And I was like, wait a minute, this is identical. And I was like,
I'm going to do it. Yeah.
It's so good.
Yeah,
on Windows and Mac. It's fun. On Linux,
I don't care. That's fine.
You don't get this, not the on-demand part, but the rest of it is, it's great.
Very nice.
Yeah,
very nice.
Really good.
Yeah, I'm installing it right now, and they have clients for all those operating systems. Yeah, so you would, and on iPhone and on Android as well.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yep, very cool.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
Wow.
So that's good.
Turning that
I use something called Infuse. I think is the name of the app on the Apple TV. So again, without installing Plex server, it just connects. It sees the NAS on the network, connects to it, and then it comes up with all this metadata, beautiful folder. Beautiful.
What?
Arable
you don't even have to run Plex.
Nope, just works. It's
What's
fantastic.
the app? Infuse on the Apple TV.
Yep, it's unbelievable. It's free. It's like excellent.
What a world we live in.
I know, it's crazy.
The thing is, there's so much stuff in the world that, security enhancements for the newly installed package would be better supported after you refresh the web page. Yes. Okay, fine. I'm refreshing.
By the way,
web page.
if you want to be blown away, look through I guess it's control panel, and then it's like the network access and the security views are like, it's crazy.
I have it. I've gone through it many, many times.
Really
and I have all the
like
security turned on. Yeah.
Yep.
If you try to log in
really good.
more than twice, it'll bounce you and all sorts of stuff. Yeah.
Yep. It has protection against, denial of service attacks, and
it's really good.
It's really impressive.
Synology is the king of the hill. Lately people aren't happy because they on their enterprise.
Well, I told you how I solved that problem, right? I just bought Synology drive. See, it's easy. No,
Are they more expensive?
No, they weren't for me. The day that I priced them, the Western Digital red drives were more expensive.
I understand why Synology does this, because people just throw. I have, I don't know, whatever drives that were lying around and threw them in the Synology, and then those fail, and then you complain to Synology.
I was never going to do that, but I probably would have just bought WD red drives or something like that.
Right. But the nice thing about Synology is you can just throw drives in there.
Yeah. But I appreciate, I see the in-certification part of this, but I also see they had this system for the business customers, and they're like, look, you want this to work, right? All the time, we'll see what happens. Maybe the drive fails in 2 days and the joke's on me. I don't know. But so far it's been good.
I'm impressed. So now I'm going to, I installed it. So now I'm going to welcome to the Synology Drive Suite. Okay. So you could actually walk through this.
Yeah.
So it's an office kind of thing.
Well, there's that too. But so you're running this on the server, right? So
yeah, this is on
when
Synology. You
download the client, which you can do from the web interface or from just Synology.com, whatever, it installs, right? And then you tell it how you want it.
Yeah,
I did it as two-way sync, and then on Windows Mac, like I said, it does on demand, which I love. And then it's exactly like Google Drive. You right-click. You shoot, you're like, I want this, whatever the language is, I want this to be available all the time. It works fantastic. It's unbelievably good.
I have 27,383 gigabytes available. I think I have enough.
Do not sync that to a laptop. I would. No, but that's the problem on Linux. If you actually just go through and be like, take it all, it will run out of disk space. And so on Linux, you have to do that kind of old-fashioned thing where you're like, all right, you said your documents folder, that would be fine. So you just go in and say, I only want my documents folder.
Yes,
and
that's usually what I do. Right.
Yep, that works great. It works great for what it is, but you just don't get to see the other parts of your file.
And you can even see what's going on, how many people are connected, and so forth.
Which the devices are, et cetera. Yep.
Yeah, this is great. All right, really thank you for the tip.
I love it.
Must be something new, because I thought I knew all about everything.
I'm surprised I told you anything you don't know about this thing. But
I've been a Synology user for at least 10 years.
There was some point where it kind of came across this, and I was like, wait a minute, could this be?
Yeah.
And I was like, if this works, I'm using this.
I dimly remember when they announced this. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know the age of it or anything like that, but it's awesome. It's really good.
Yeah.
And then for app pick, two things. One, I just made fun of Edge a bunch, but Microsoft Edge 137 came out, I think it was last week. And it's weird because there's been this staging of announcements. This is actually the biggest release of this browser, I think, since they went to Chromium. It's crazy. So there's a bunch of new end user features, picture-in-picture improvements, improvements to Edge for Business, and so forth. They're getting rid of a bunch of pointless, superfluous features they had added in the past that nobody even knows are in there, like the image editor and blah, 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 whatever. They're getting rid of Wallet, which I never quite understood, the Wallet Hub anyway. But they're just going to have a standard password section like all browsers do. So they're not getting rid of the functionality, just the weird UI. And okay, so you're like, whatever, it's a release of a browser, comes out every 6 weeks, who cares? But then a couple of days later, they announced the general availability of Game Assist, right? And this is that little mini browser that goes in the Game Hub. And this is delivered as part of Edge 137. So if you play video games on Windows, it doesn't have to be Xbox games, whatever game, it doesn't matter. Well, it matters. You have to use the game bar, but you bring up the game bar, and that's the choice now, and you can pin it, and you can have that mini browser running with you while you're playing the game. And this is what a lot of gamers do. They're like, oh, I'm stuck on this level. I want to go look in here and blah, 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 whatever. I think we talked about this, I'm sure, last week. But that's kind of a big deal. But I also mentioned this Windows 11 app action thing where you right click on something or you do the Windows key plus click if you have a Copilot Plus PC and you get compatible actions with what you see on screen. So today it's text and image. I think that's going to improve over time, although I guess technically most of what you see on screen is a text or an image, but third-party apps can add themselves to this list. This is going to be a big extensibility model in Windows. And Edge 137 adds that support to progressive web apps that are created with Microsoft Edge. So if you have a progressive web app and install it through Edge, if it supports this feature, which it can now, you will get that app action support as well. So it's like kind of a big release. I mean, don't ever use Edge; it's terrible. But it's kind of amazing, like what they're doing here. Like there's a lot of stuff going on there. So if you do use Edge, it's definitely worth looking at this. It's surprising how much is in there.
Edge 137, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
So
one more thing, real quick. Sorry.
Yes.
Sorry. This is not really related to Windows or anything. I just think it's kind of interesting. So a couple months ago, 3 months ago, Adobe announced a for mobile, full Photoshop app for the iPhone. When that thing shipped, you had to buy a subscription to use it, right?
Yeah.
They introduced a new mobile plan for Photoshop. I think it's like Photoshop Mobile and Web, which is $8 a month. So it's a fairly reasonable way to get into this. But the Android version came out yesterday, and it's still in beta. And while it's in beta, it's free for everyone. It's really worth looking at because Photoshop has all kinds of problems, in my opinion. But the AI stuff that they've been doing, Adobe, is actually kind of amazing. And a lot of those key AI-based features around image editing and so forth, like selecting objects inside of an image or spot healing or the magic wand stuff and all, the remove background, remove whatever it is, that stuff's awesome. And that's all in the mobile app. And I'm not trying to promote Adobe per se, but actually I have to say this app was pretty impressive. It's worth looking at. So if you have an Android phone, check it out. I mean, it's surprisingly good.
It's a beta though, still.
It is a beta, but it seems like it works pretty great.
Pretty stable. All right.
Yeah. It was good enough. Like it actually made me reinstall Photoshop. And then I was like, oh yeah, that's why I hate this thing. But it's the
for the phone, it's good.
Yeah, because a lot of times you're out in the world doing whatever on your phone, and you're like, oh, I'd like to post this photo, but those two idiots in the background or whatever, and this is
wow,
I guess too.
That's cool.
To get rid of them, yeah.
Nice. All right, Paul. We're absent Richard.
Yes.
I mean, we can say what's on Run As Radio this week.
Yeah, we could do that.
I can give him a little plug. Fixing a security vulnerability in Active Directory with Steve Seifus. Okay. Why would a security vulnerability take more than 2 years to fix? Well, KB 5015754. That's why.
Glad you asked.
That's why. So that sounds like a kind of a fun detective story. Richard Campbell, Run As Radio. It's at runasradio.com.
He doesn't talk about .NET Rocks on this show, but I actually I listen to both shows, but I listen to more of the .NET Rock stuff, and those shows are often fantastic.
Yeah, with Carl.
Really, yeah. I
We've
really
had Carl on the show.
And,
yeah.
Well,
you can get it all at Run As Radio if you go there. Mm-hmm. So, Paul, you said you want to talk spritzes.
Yeah. So when we were in Mexico, we were there for about 4 months. There was kind of this interesting series of events that were related to like cocktails and cocktail bars and stuff. And so, like just for the local aspect of it, Mexico up until late last year was kind of weird because there's a lot of bars and restaurants, and Mexicans are incredibly friendly and love social engagements and stuff. But there were very few places in Mexico City where you could actually go to a bar and sit at a bar and have that kind of bar experience. There are many places in Mexico City where there's an enormous bar, seats, and you cannot sit there.
What?
It's just like sit. I know it's bizarre.
You have to stand.
But between November and maybe January last year,
that must be their drunkenness
all
prevention.
These cocktail bars started opening, and I don't know who does this, but the whatever organization does like the top cocktail bar, top bars or whatever it is in North America, and Mexico City, like a bunch of places we go are in there now. In fact, one of our favorite new bars is a speakeasy in Condesa that I think it was number 11 or something, and they were never on the list before. Like they deserve it. Like they're fantastic. So there's that. That no one. I mean, if you're listening to this, you probably don't care about that unless you're going to Mexico City. But the other couple of things that happened was a lot of people are probably familiar with this notion that like you get ice and it can be ice cubes or whatever. They have the big cubes like the big ones. And then if you go to a nice place, they'll have like those perfectly clear ice cubes. And you can buy kits at home to make this yourself, but it involves like getting the air out. It's complicated, time consuming. It's not great. Like we've tried a couple of different ways to do this. It's just not really worth the effort. But if you've ever gone to a really good cocktail bar and they have those like perfectly clear ice cubes, like as if they cut it out of a bowl or something.
Yeah, I don't know how they do
awesome,
that.
Right?
Yeah.
But the other thing about cocktail bars is that there are like different glass styles, right? So you get the tall, thin glasses, whatever, I don't know the names of these things, but we started seeing those kind of really clear ice cubes it was almost like a triple like height ice cube. So it's a tall ice cube that fits into the tall glass, like exactly. I call them tower ice cubes. I'm not even sure that's the right term, but I saw one and I texted my brother-in-law because he's really into this stuff. And he's like, that's weird you just said it. I'm starting to see these things all over the place here. So for his birthday, we bought some. You get these plastic or rubber kind of Amazon trays to make ice cubes, and they make those now in the tower form.
Oh,
so you
that's
can put
cool.
them into a tall glass. It's actually kind of a cool thing.
Is it a picture on your Instagram or somewhere?
Yeah, I don't, I'm not sure if I could find it easily.
I'll find it.
But
I'll look.
If you go
If
to
it's
like
on
the
Insta.
pictures we have of Ruby, the Ruby wine bar is that they have an entire refrigerator full of these things pre-made within the glass, so that when they make a cocktail, it just comes out with the ice cube in it, and they can just go right to it.
The problem is there's so many pictures of alcoholic drinks on your Instagram.
Yeah, no,
It's
I know that's
kind of hard to narrow it down, Paul.
Yeah,
You,
so you have to
you
go,
make me so hungry when I
I'm sorry.
when I visit you.
So if you go past, go past
you and
this
Richard.
yellow. Yeah.
Yeah. This is all back home.
Yeah, you got to go back to Mexico. A little bit more. There you go. In here somewhere. So Ruby, that one says Ruby. Maybe look in there. That's a possibility.
Oh yeah, there's a bunch of them in here. Yeah, let's see.
But yeah, it's there
you go.
There you go. There's an example.
There's a big square block
See what
of
I'm
ice
saying,
in
right?
there.
So it's like a column of ice cube.
What the hell?
I know, they're beautiful, and that place does it right. So those ice cubes are perfectly clear. They're gorgeous.
There is a way you can buy a thing that will make clear ice cubes in your home.
Yes, but
you got to get the bubbles out. That's the key. There's air dissolved in there. Well, all right. So next time I'm in Mexico City, we're going to Ruby
Well,
Bar.
no, they're
and
everywhere. I
having-
mean, it's happening in the U.S. too. This is the thing. It's like it's just a trend, right?
Yeah.
But the other trend.
Lisa got one for her sister's birthday, but it isn't exactly a square ice cube.
Okay.
It's got a shape. It might recognize. I don't want to get
I see.
too
Okay,
many
we
details.
go more traditional, more of a family event.
A family ice cube.
No,
Yeah.
but we have like the cubes of a couple of different sizes because some don't fit depending on the glass. But yeah, So I just the first time I saw it, I took a picture of it and I sent it to I'm like, dude, what is this? And he's like, I just saw one of these. Like
so
it's
funny.
become a thing this year. It's
I
very
mean,
interesting.
it also means that you don't have as much beverage in that glass.
Okay, but yes.
But
Actually,
is it somehow colder? Is it somehow better?
Yeah,
It's just
and-
cool looking.
Right, because there's more surface on it or
Right.
whatever. It fits the glass, I mean, a lot of the big ice cubes aren't going to fit in that kind of glass. You want to have it's not, this is true of wine and apparently of cocktails as well. You want the right shape glass, depending on the drink, I guess. I'm not an expert on that, but
Yes. Yes.
if you and
Yes.
I had gone into a bar like a year ago
yes.
and someone had ordered like an Aperol Spritz, I would have been like, oh, that's a nice drink, Nancy. What's going on there?
It's kind of a
But here's
girl
the thing.
drink.
Yep.
But apparently Ruby has something
Yeah,
special.
so this has become a big thing. So
I want
Ruby-
a fluffy Paloma. What the hell is
Ruby, it's like a Spritz version of a Paloma, but
Okay.
they do something to. It's not whipped, it's not egg, but it does something that foams. up.
they froth it a little bit.
They froth it somehow.
Yeah.
The Ruby is technically it's a wine cocktail bar, meaning a lot of their cocktails are made with wines, but wines mean a lot of different things because there's like fortified wines and things like vermouths and all this stuff. So vermouth is also a big thing in Mexico City right now. Vermouth is Spanish, but it's become a really big thing. There are a lot of places we know that make their own vermouth, including Ruby, by the way.
Oh, Ruby brands the buns even. Look at that.
They're going to brand my buns the next time I go back.
Buns. There's more of this tower glass.
Yeah. So
wait a minute. You're not drinking Jaeger.
No. That's almost certainly a vermouth, I bet, actually. But
that's Jaeger in a bottle. I recognize it.
It's definitely not Jaeger. So anyway, but Aperol or Spritzes are actually like really light and they're refreshing and they typically have less alcohol.
Yeah.
And it occurred to us like,
I actually like Aperol Spritzers.
Yeah, this is a good drink for like warmer weather. Like
it's like Tang with alcohol in it.
So the two classics for Spritzes are Aperol and Saint Germain Spritz, right? Those are the two big ones.
Yeah.
But that place Ruby in particular, but not just Ruby, other places too, because there's another thing we started seeing around is starting to make other kinds of Spritzes. And so if you get something like a Manhattan, you could typically make a Manhattan with vermouth, but you can also, like in Mexico City now, in Spain as well, obviously. You can drink vermouth straight up. You can drink it like with ice. You can drink it with soda water. You can drink it as part of a cocktail. So they had like there's an alternative to vermouth called I think it's pronounced Chinar or Sinar, which is it's actually made from an artichoke, which makes it sound terrible, but it tastes it's an Amaro type liqueur, just like vermouth really, and They had a Chinar, I'm going to call it Chinar. They had a Chinar Spritz on the menu. So I was like, I will try this. And I was like, oh, this is really good. Like I would never think about drinking Chinar solo or whatever, but I was like, this is actually very tasty. So I was like, well, you guys make your own vermouth. This is a vermouth place. How come you don't have a vermouth Spritz? And that guy, you saw the picture of Sebastian, was like, oh, that's complicated. I don't know. I'm like, it's not complicated. Just take the China, right, and put it in the vermouth. But he was like, no, it's more complicated. And then he spent a bunch of time working on this. And he calls it a Paul Spritz, but it's like this, I don't know the exact.
They invented a drink just for you, Paul.
Well, he worked on this thing for like half an hour. And I was like, I don't understand why you're not calling it like an Paul Earl Spritz, but he was like, no,
Paul Earl.
No. He's like, no, it's a Paul Spritz. I'm like, okay, fine. But it's basically a vermouth. It's basically a vermouth Spritz, and
that sounds delish.
It's even better than the China Spritz. So this is like a whole. I mean, you won't typically find more than like you'll always see like Aperol Spritz and maybe Saint Germain Spritz, and then beyond that, it depends on where you are and what. But this is becoming a thing, and actually, if you're looking for kind of like a light summer alternative that's to like a hard liqueur type cocktail or just a hard liquor. These are really good choices. Like they're really good.
Looks like fun. Yeah, very refreshing, very light. Yep. And if you can, get it with a tower ice cube.
Yeah, depending on the glass.
They look so good, actually.
Yeah, no, it's amazing.
Very nice. That's all on Paul's Instagram if you want more deets.
Today on how to become an alcoholic, Paul discusses first steps.
It goes down easy, kid.
Yeah. That's part of the problem. But yes.
Yeah. Well, I stopped drinking Aperol Spritzes because I ran into people like you who made fun of me.
Yeah, no, I'm that kind of a bully. It's not something I'm proud of, Leo, but I also fall into it a little too easily. So
it's, you know what? It's light. It's light.
It is light. Honestly, they're really good. And I'm sure they're not good for you, but they're just,
it's good for you. Paul Thurrott, Thurrott.com. He knows what's good for you. That's the place to go. Get a premium membership. You can read all the extra content, but it's the place to go to keep up on Windows and Microsoft news. THURROTT.com. And of course, his books, The Field Guide to Windows 11 and Windows Everywhere, which is really interesting history of Windows, available at leanpub.com. And you pay your own price at leanpub.com. Paul, you're going to be in Macungie next week, or are you going back to Mexico City?
I should be here. Where is it? Yeah, at least a month, maybe a little more.
You're going to stay for the 4th of July, of course.
Yeah, at least through, it'd probably be mid-July, a little bit after that.
You're going to stay for the fireworks. All right, very nice. Yeah, Anthony Nielsen is reminding me about Curious Elixirs, which is actually, I used to subscribe to these.
Oh.
They're non-alcoholic. They're very herby.
Yes.
And maybe more herby than I like. But I did like these, and I used to drink them without the alcohol.
Today was a, I almost said Sambuca, a kombucha, which is not alcoholic. It's just like fermented, whatever. But but it's close to a cocktail. So if you're kind of looking for something that's a little bit,
I drink kombucha. I drink a non-alcoholic kombucha. So
yeah,
it's it doesn't even have 1% alcohol in it. But
yeah.
But I these spritzes I subscribed for a while.
My God, what's wrong with you? No, it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah, really good, really good. It's nice to have something that's like an alcoholic drink, but it isn't.
Yeah, that's the trick. I mean, a lot of times you might just be out with a group of friends and
I want to be social, but I don't want to drink.
The mocktail thing has become a big deal. Like that, you see that pretty much everywhere now.
Yeah.
So
love it.
Yeah, it's good.
Spritz yourself with an Aperol.
Don't spritz yourself.
Aperol spritzer.
Oh boy, yeah, the language isn't great, but you know what I'm saying.
Spritz yourself. Tomorrow is, of course, Nintendo Switch Day, so I don't expect to see you around for another week.
Switch, whatever.
Thank you all for joining us. We do Windows Weekly every Wednesday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, 1800 UTC. You can watch us live on 8 different channels. Of course, club members get the behind the velvet rope access in the Discord, but it's also YouTube, open to the public, Twitch, TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn, X.com, Kick, and anywhere you can find us. Watch us live. You don't have to, because we have make recordings available on demand, as we say, on our website, twit.tv/WW. There's a YouTube channel dedicated to Windows Weekly, so you can get the video there. Great way to share a clip with a friend. Of course, if you subscribe, then you'll get it automatically, audio or video, the minute we're done. And I'm forgetting to turn that off. And
your wife over there doing something?
No, that's me. It's an Apple thing. You just wouldn't understand. But if you do subscribe in your podcast client, please do us a favor. Leave a 5-star review. Tell the world how wonderful Windows Weekly is. Spread the word. We appreciate that. Thank you all for joining us. Thanks especially to our Club Twit members who make this all possible. We'll see you right here next Wednesday for Windows Weekly. Bye-bye. The tech world moves fast, and you need to keep up for your business, for your life. The best way to do that? Twit.tv. On This Week in Tech, I bring together tech's best and brightest minds to help you understand what just happened and prepare for what's happening next. It's your first podcast of the week and the last word in tech. Cybersecurity experts know they can't miss a minute of Security Now every week with Steve Gibson. What you don't know could really hurt your business, but there's nothing Steve Gibson doesn't know. Tune in Security Now every Wednesday. Every Thursday, industry expert Micah Sargent brings you interviews with tech journalists who make or break the top stories of the week on Tech News Weekly. And if you use Apple products, you won't want to miss the premier Apple podcast, now in its 20th year, Mac Break Weekly. Then there's Paul Thurrott and Richard Campbell. They are the best connected journalists covering Microsoft. And every week they bring you their insight and wit on Windows Weekly. Build your tech intelligence week after week with the best in the business. Your seat at tech's most entertaining and informative table is waiting at twit.tv. Subscribe now.